Chapter 1503. When Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao arrived at the imperial study, they did not see their eldest brother, who was immersed in reviewing the memorials. They looked at each other in confusion. At this time, a eunuch beside them smiled and said, "His Majesty is currently in the imperial garden. This way, please." Xiao Ho was stunned. Could it be that imperial brother knew that they would come to find him and specially arranged for someone to wait here? Without suspecting anything, the two of them followed the eunuch with their own thoughts. After walking through the winding corridors and passing through the flowers and willows, an exquisite pavilion appeared in front of them. The eunuch bowed and extended his hand. "His Majesty is in the pavilion. This way, please." The two of them nodded and walked through the stone path. After 2 or 3 flights of stairs, they saw a person pouring wine for himself. Xiao Su had always been self-disciplined. If it was not necessary, he would not touch a drop of wine. Now that Chu Qingyan was pregnant, he would not touch wine even more. Now, it seemed that he had really encountered something troublesome. The two of them thought of the matters in the imperial court and the imminent birth of their sister-in-law. The former had many things to worry about, while the latter worried about his heart. From dealing with imperial father's death to his ascension to the throne, imperial brother had never had a good rest. No matter how valiant he was, he could not withstand it. Xiao Yao walked up and poured a cup for Xiao Ho. Then, he poured a cup for himself and sat down. There was no longer any politeness between the ruler and his subject. Instead, they were like brothers as they drank. "Come, let's drink. Let's toast to the things that happen every day." Xiao Su raised his cup. The three of them clinked their cups and drank it in one gulp. "Imperial brother, you didn't see it. Good fellow, after you left, the faces of those court officials were colorful. They were even more beautiful than a dye factory. It's a rare sight in 100 years. Xiao Yao deliberately livened up the atmosphere and imitated the behavior of the court officials. It was as funny as it could be. Xiao Ho was amused. When he turned his head, he saw that although imperial brother's brows had relaxed, his expression was still gloomy. "Imperial brother, once we catch the mastermind, the rumors will naturally fall apart. You don't have to worry." Xiao Ho comforted. Xiao Yao shook his head and said, "Not necessarily. This is not as simple as my brother's fake imperial edict. This time, the person behind the scenes is taking advantage of the people's belief in the heavens. Even if they find out the culprit and tell the people that someone is spreading rumors and causing trouble, they may be skeptical at the time. However, once a natural disaster or man-made disaster occurs, they will think that it is the work of evil. In the end, it is still human nature that is causing trouble." As soon as he finished speaking, the temperature in the pavilion dropped by several degrees. Xiao Ho face-palmed. Second brother really touched a sore spot. They weren't here to cause trouble, okay? Xiao Yao also felt his imperial brother's eyes turn cold in an instant. He immediately picked up the wine jug and covered his face. He really wanted to slap himself a few times. He really talked too much. Second brother is right. You don't need to think about how to comfort me. At this point, deceiving oneself and others is not a smart move. Xiao Su took a sip of wine and said calmly. Only then did Xiao Yao dare to put down the wine jug and move closer. Then in imperial brother's opinion, is there any way to deal with it? As soon as he said this, he only received a cold glance from his imperial brother. He couldn't help but be puzzled. What did he say wrong? Xiao Ho shook his head in disappointment. If imperial brother had a way, you wouldn't be drinking wine here. He really didn't have good eyesight. Xiao Yao rubbed his nose. Wasn't he confused because he was too concerned? However, this reminded him of something. Imperial brother, you were really impressive today. Although there is no way to deal with it at the moment, as long as you refuse to be the emperor like today, I believe that those people in the imperial court won't dare to say anything. This is also not a solution. Xiao Ho shook his head. At this moment, Xiao Su was fiddling with his wine cup as he leaned lazily against the back of the chair. He didn't have the air of an emperor that he had during this period of time. Instead, he seemed a bit more sinister. Did you think that I was joking? The two of them didn't hear clearly, but they also seemed to be in disbelief. Imperial brother, what did you mean by what you said just now? Xiao Su lightly snorted. I had no choice but to accept the throne, not because I wanted to. If either of you wants to take over, just say the word. I can immediately give you the edict of abdication. Xiao Yao's body trembled. Xiao Ho's mouth twitched. At this moment, the two of them thought, Imperial brother must be joking. As if he could tell what the two of them were thinking, Xiao Su directly said, I'm not joking. The weather is really good. It's very suitable for admiring flowers and drinking wine. Xiao Yao waved his hand like a fan and said with a smile. Second brother is right. Why don't we go take a look in the garden? I wonder how the peony is growing. Xiao Ho followed up with a look of great interest on his face. Just as the two of them were about to leave the pavilion with their arms around each other's shoulders, a cold voice came from behind them. Come back. The two of them somewhat dejectedly let go of each other and turned around with a bitter smile. All right, let's put this matter aside for now. Let's talk about the rumor. Xiao Su knew that these two fellows were also very lazy. Other members of the imperial family had a headache over why all the princes wanted to be emperor. When it came to him, it became why all the princes didn't want to be emperor. Others rushed like ducks, while they avoided it like a tiger. He really regretted taking on this terrible mess. Seeing that his imperial brother didn't mention that matter anymore, Xiao Yao's brain immediately became smart. Let's investigate the source first. Since this matter spread so quickly, other than someone adding fuel to the fire, there should be other factors. Otherwise, it wouldn't have become such a powerful situation in such a short time. Xiao Ho agreed with this. He carefully thought about the results of the recent investigation and reported one of the matters. I heard that someone took out Imperial sister-in-law's birth characters and gave them to an enlightened monk to confirm the rumor that Imperial sister-in-law was possessed by a demon. However, I've ordered people to find this enlightened monk, but there's still no news. It's very likely that someone is pretending to be Imperial sister-in-law to confuse the public and increase the authenticity of the rumor. Often, people only wanted to hear what they wanted to hear. As for whether it was true or false, it wasn't that important. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes, as if he had found an entry point. Since they believe the enlightened monk so much, then we'll find an even more famous enlightened monk to dispel this rumor. Xiao Yao and Xiao Ho's eyes lit up. As expected of their eldest brother, he could find a way to dispel the rumor with just a little hint. All right, third brother, I'll leave this matter to you. You must complete it in the next few days. The rumor matter couldn't be delayed any longer. Xiao Ho nodded. His imperial brother was so busy now, so it was natural for them to share more of his burden. Seeing that the matter was beginning to take shape, Xiao Su tossed his wine cup aside and planned to go back to accompany his wife. However, before he left, he said, as for my suggestion just now, whenever you have any ideas, feel free to find me. Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao immediately fled. They wouldn't have any ideas, ever. The sun was shining brightly, and the wind was blowing gently. A monk in green robes wearing a bamboo hat and holding Buddhist prayer beads appeared at the bustling city gate. Behind him were two young monks. He raised his head and looked at the bustling streets. The corners of his mouth curved, revealing a benevolent smile. Then, he walked in the direction of the imperial palace. Chapter 1504. Xiao Ho looked at the list of names that his subordinates had compiled. It was a list of the most influential eminent monks in the entire Xixian. But after he drew and sketched, there were only a few left. However, they were either wandering outside or missing. The only one that fit the description was Hugua Temple's Su Jian. This person's influence was unprecedented. His followers ranged from 80-year-old women to teenage girls. Just as imperial sister-in-law had said, looks mattered in this world. However, he had heard that although Su Jian appeared benevolent and kind, he had never been involved in the secular world and hadn't left the temple for a long time. Would he be able to invite him? After all, this person didn't care about fame or fortune. It was a bit of a headache to have any weaknesses that could be used against him. At this moment, the person he had sent to keep an eye on Fenghuang Mountain returned with news. Su Jian has left the mountain. Xiao Ho was obviously shocked when he received the news. At the same time, another subordinate ran over. Lord, someone saw Master Su Jian at the palace gates. This news was even more shocking. Xiao Ho felt like he had been hit by a pie. Quick, prepare the horse. This prince needs to go to the palace gates. He hoped he could make it in time and not let Su Jian escape. However, when he arrived at the palace gates, he learned from the guards that Su Jian had already entered the palace and that he had requested to see the emperor. Xiao Ho's eyes lit up. He immediately rushed to the palace to see his imperial brother. However, he was a step too late because Su Jian had already gone to Yansu Palace. Xiao Ho thought that since Su Jian had already arrived, there was nothing else for him to do. He planned to turn and leave, but a eunuch called out to him. Lord, His Majesty wants you to go to Yansu Palace if you come. Xiao Ho raised his brows. He didn't suspect anything and walked toward Yansu Palace. On the way, he brought Xiao Yao along. At this moment, in Yansu Palace, Chu Qingyan looked at the blue-robed monk in front of her. Her eyes were slightly warm. I didn't expect you to come and see me. I'm very surprised and pleasantly surprised. At that time, he had saved her and left in a hurry. Almost a year had passed. She remembered that when she had just transmigrated, other than Big Ice Cube and the others, the only friends she knew were him and Xiao Ran in Dongting. Now, he was the only one left. She was also in her pregnancy period, so her heart was filled with endless emotions. Xiao Su knew that Su Jian had unknowingly helped the little fellow a lot, including saving her life. However, even though Su Jian was a monk, he still couldn't stand the sight of the little fellow's red nose and red eyes. He was a typical possessive person, but his rationality allowed him to suppress his jealousy. Su Jian put his palms together and his eyes were calm. However, he concealed the joy of meeting again after a long time. No one knew about it. This poor monk and you are fated to meet. I have divined that you are in trouble, so I came down the mountain to visit you. I hope I can help you. Su Jian's straightforward words stunned both of them. However, Xiao Su was the first to react. Master, are you talking about the rumors outside? Su Jian nodded and chanted Amitabha before saying, the rumors are not true and have already affected the foundation of the country. The heavens have the virtue of cherishing life, allowing Sichuan to usher in a prosperous ruler. We can't allow the living to fall into misery and suffering. Moreover, Qing Yan is this poor monk's close friend. This poor monk can't sit by and do nothing. Today, I came down the mountain in hopes that I can do what I can to help His Majesty quell this disaster. Xiao Su couldn't be more grateful. Thank you for thinking this way, Master. Indeed, we need your help this time. Su Jian laughed. This poor monk is very willing to help. Chu Qingyan listened to their back and forth and was a little confused. Big Ice Cube, how can Su Jian help us? At this moment, before Xiao Su could turn around, another voice had already spoken up. The reason why the rumors spread like wildfire was because a fake monk was spouting nonsense. Now that Master Su Jian, a righteous monk, is here to testify that imperial sister-in-law isn't a demon, the rumors will naturally fall apart. No one will dare to say anything about this matter anymore. Xiao Ho stepped in, followed by Xiao Yao. The two of them appeared in front of everyone in an elegant manner. Greetings, Master Su Jian. The two of them bowed in greeting. Su Jian stood up. Greetings, Your Highnesses. After Xiao Ho's explanation, Chu Qingyan finally understood. As expected, pregnancy made one dumb for 3 years. Su Jian, thank you so much. Chu Qingyan was very touched. Su Jian smiled generously. It's nothing. Don't mention it. Since Su Jian was already here, Xiaohou saved himself the trouble of looking for him. He directly said to everyone, "Leave this matter to me." In less than 2 days, the news that Master Su Jian had appeared in the palace to pray for the new emperor's unborn child spread like wildfire. In an instant, it swept through the entire capital and even the surrounding towns. Didn't the new emperor not have a concubine yet? Where did the child come from? You're so ignorant. Don't you know that His Majesty already had a fiancée when he was still lord? Who was it? The Chu clan's 5th miss. Ah, isn't that the demon who was possessed by the rumors 2 days ago? What nonsense are you spouting? What kind of person was Master Su Jian? Could he just casually pray for others? It must be that Miss Chu's benevolence that made Master Su pray for her child. That's true. If she really was a demon, Master Su would have already subdued her. Right. Hey, do you think Miss Chu's child will be a dragon or phoenix? I'm guessing it'll be a dragon. That's the first one. It'll definitely be a dragon. No, I've seen Miss Chu before. She's a peerless beauty. I think she should give birth to a phoenix, a little princess as beautiful as Miss Chu. No, I bet on a prince. No, I bet on a princess. Thus, just as the demon's storm was about to dissipate, another storm was stirred up. That was to determine whether Chu Qingyan's child would be a boy or a girl. At one point, there were even people who quarreled endlessly over this, and even fought over it. Thus, the people set up gambling houses to bet on whether the Sichuan dynasty would welcome a prince or a princess this time. As for whether it was a demon or a calamity, no one cared anymore. When Consort Yu found out about this, she hurriedly ordered people to start spreading rumors again. Unfortunately, this was like throwing a stone into the sea. It didn't cause any waves. She was so angry that she almost shattered her teeth from clenching them. No matter, she still had a backup plan. On this day, Xiaohou and Xiaoyao went out together and happened to see someone setting up a gambling house. Xiaoyao was itching to join in, so he dragged his unwilling younger brother and squeezed in with him. However, when they saw the wager written on the board, their expressions changed slightly. I didn't expect things to develop in this direction. It's simply too unexpected. Xiaoyao was dumbfounded. Xiaohou rubbed his chin. Looks like royal sister-in-law is a hot topic. Then do you want to play? Xiaoyao winked at him. Xiaohou smiled. Come, let's try our luck. Chu Qingyan, who was playing chess with Su Jian, sneezed. She rubbed her nose, completely unaware that she had become a popular topic among the people again. Chapter 1505. Seeing her sneeze, Su Jian asked with concern, "Did the wind blow you?" Chu Qingyan waved her hand and said nonchalantly, "It's fine. I'm not as weak as you think. It's your turn to move." Su Jian sized her up and saw that her complexion was rosy and healthy. Only then did he relax and place a piece on the board. She had been resting for the past 2 days and hadn't been able to see him much. Today, she had invited him over to catch up. Chu Qingyan thought about her next move as she called out, "These are some pastries that I specially ordered the imperial kitchen to prepare for you. Try them." Su Jian readily picked up a piece. The light green pastry sparkled under the sunlight and was very appetizing. He smiled and said, "Qingyan, you're so considerate." Chu Qingyan rested her chin on one hand and chuckled. "Don't be so polite. You already said that I'm your close friend. Of course I have to be considerate when entertaining a close friend. Besides, I didn't do it. I was just moving my lips. Also, you've helped me a lot this time. Adding up the new and old favors, I feel like I can't repay you enough." Su Jian thought to himself, "Then don't repay me. If you owe me, at least you'll have something to remember." "There's no need to be so calculative between friends," he replied with a faint smile. Suddenly, the delicate girl in front of him stared at him without blinking. He was used to being looked at by thousands of people, but now he felt a little uncomfortable. He coughed and avoided her gaze. He pretended to be calm and asked, "What are you looking at?" Chu Qingyan didn't notice his actions. She sighed exaggeratedly and said, "Su Jian, I actually feel that it's a pity. Someone like you who has outstanding looks, temperament, and character shouldn't stay in Buddhism and let the mountain gate seal away your elegance. Do you know? With your looks, people will throw flowers at you on the streets. As long as you're a disciple of the secular world, you'll have fans ranging from little children to old women. There won't be too many of them." Su Jian was amused by her exaggerated words. Her face was like a painting in front of him. He had never paid much attention to appearances, but at this moment, when he looked into her bright black eyes, it was as if he could see flowers blooming like a piece of brocade. He saw the blue sea and the blue sky, boundless and endless. He knew that he was possessed. He reined in his emotions and put his palms together. Appearance is only an illusion created by the soul. It can't withstand the grinding of time. Only with a steady heart can one not be affected by the changes of time. If one is too attached to external factors, it won't be easy for one's mind to be stable, because it will be easy to be tempted. It will be even easier to be tempted by the secular world. Wait. She raised her hands in surrender. I give up. I won't talk about this topic with you anymore. Otherwise, you'll always be thinking about Tang Seng. A curious baby came online. Who is Tang Sanzang? Chu Qingyan grunted. Alright, she had dug a hole for herself and jumped into it. She wanted to say a few words to fool him, but when she looked up, she saw that his eyes were sparkling. He was looking at her with a very sincere curiosity. She couldn't stand such a pure gaze. She could only bite into her pastry while telling him the story of a senior monk who brought 3 disciples and a horse to the Western paradise in search of Buddhist scriptures. Time passed little by little. Su Jian looked at the beautiful girl in front of him who was dancing with joy as she spoke. His eyes softened like a pool of lake water. Bits and pieces of the past appeared in front of him. When we first met, I advised you to enter Buddhism, and you advised me to enter the secular world. Now, I have unknowingly entered the secular world. I wanted to help you become a Buddha, but I didn't expect you to help me become a human. Master said that I should face this tribulation in this life. I tried my best to guard against it, but I couldn't resist fate. Forget it, that's it. From now on, I will atone for my sins to Buddha. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Ho appeared in the courtyard. When he saw the 2 of them playing chess, he stood to the side and didn't disturb them. When Chu Qingyan saw that Xiao Ho had arrived, she sighed and said, "Looks like we won't be able to beat the white bone demon 3 times. It doesn't matter. There will be plenty of time in the future." Su Jian put the chess piece in his hand back into the box and shook his head with a smile. I lost. Chu Qingyan was interrupted and instantly forgot to sigh. She was overjoyed. My chess skills have improved again. Not only did I win against the big ice cube, but I also won against you. Ha ha ha, looks like I'm going to be invincible in the world. Xiao Ho looked at the chess game and shook his head inwardly. It was obvious that Su Jian had let her win. However, if his eldest brother had let her win because he doted on her, then why did this great master do it? Just as Xiao Ho was puzzled, Su Jian had already stood up and walked toward him. Isn't it time? Then let's go. In order to clear Imperial Sister-in-law's name, a lecture on scriptures was arranged for the civil and military officials free of charge. When the officials heard that Su Jian was holding the fort, they were so happy that they wanted to burn incense to their ancestors. Although Su Jian was famous, he often wandered around and rarely lectured in a fixed place. Moreover, this lecture was full, so it was difficult to get a single lecture. The officials were so excited. Xiao Ho bowed and extended his hand. Great master, this way please. Behind him, Chu Qingyan waved with a smile. I wish you success in your brainwashing. Su Jian curled his lips and slowly walked away. Walking on the road, they passed by the imperial garden. An eminent monk and a handsome lord. Against the backdrop of hundreds of flowers, they were as beautiful as a painting. It's all thanks to great master's help this time. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so kind. As the emperor, his elder brother wasn't good with words. As his younger brother, he could only do it for him. Su Jian smiled faintly. You're welcome, Prince Yi. The two were walking beside an orchid. Perhaps it was because the wind was too strong, or because a palace servant had accidentally broken the branch. Xiao Ho was a lover of flowers. He couldn't help but stop and bend down to pick up the branch. He looked at it with pity, then handed it to the palace servant behind him. Only then did he continue walking with Su Jian. Your Highness is so compassionate towards flowers. It's clear that you're a kind-hearted person, Su Jian said. Xiao Ho smiled faintly. I grew up in the imperial family and have seen plenty of blood. My hands can't be considered compassionate. Su Jian smiled. It's not like what Lord said. Since you've let go of your hatred, then everything is a thing of the past. Now that you treat your brothers with sincerity and do your best for the people, the sins of the past are slowly being washed away. Xiao Ho looked at him in surprise. Su Jian looked back at him with compassionate eyes. This person should have already disappeared from the world, but because of a woman's appearance, he managed to avoid death, so, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. Since you've already turned back and forgiven your sins, then what you've lost will return. As long as your heart is benevolent, everything will not be too late. After Su Jian said this, he put his palms together and chanted, Amitba, 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 Amitba. Xiao Ho stared blankly as the monk's robe brushed past the door before disappearing behind it. What was lost would return. As long as one's heart was kind, there was still time. What did he mean by that? He patted his head lightly. It seemed that his sister-in-law was right. This person really did look like a fraud. He shook his head with a smile and turned to leave. Inside the door, Su Jian smiled and closed his eyes. The fate of this life was over. The fate of this pair of good men and women was not yet over. Chapter 1506. After Su Jian left, Chu Qingyan ordered Xining to put away the chessboard. She held a cup of hot water with both hands and sipped it intermittently. It could be said that the past 6 months had been the most peaceful time she had been here. Without the Chu family's coercion, the Empress's difficulties, and the pressure of war, she and the big ice cube welcomed a relatively relaxed life. Now, she was also waiting for the arrival of the little fellow in her belly. Then, the circle between her and the big ice cube would be complete. Master, do you want to go for a walk? Xining asked considerately after cleaning up the table. Chu Qingyan thought for a moment, then put down the cup. Let's go to my mother's place. Xining and Jasper hurried over, each supporting her. Now that the little master was full term and would give birth in 2 days, they had to be careful. When Ethereal heard the news, she also put down what she was doing and stayed by her side to wait on her. At this time, there was no room for any mishaps. Now, the trip became a mighty group of people. Chu Qingyan didn't know whether to laugh or cry at their serious expressions. My mother lives next door. You don't have to make such a big fuss. Ethereal looked like they had heard her opinion, but they didn't intend to listen. She was helpless. In the past, she was a pregnant woman, so she was the boss. Now, everyone was her boss. Forget it, forget it. Let them be. Chu Mu's mother lived in the palace next to Yen Su's palace. Now, she wasn't the only one living in the palace. Chu Mu's father, who had returned a few days ago, was also there. But for some reason, Chu Mu's father had a high fever on the day he returned from the border happily. Although the fever had subsided, he was still unconscious. Ethereal and the imperial doctors in the palace couldn't find the cause of his illness. They could only attribute it to overwork. Chu Qingyan was very worried, but it was fine as long as he was fine. Chu Machen's mother, who had received the news, was already waiting at the door of the hall. When she saw Chu Machen, she immediately walked up and held her daughter's hand. She scolded her softly, "Why don't you stay in the hall and have a good rest at this time? If you want to see your mother, you can send someone to summon me. You don't have to come here in person." Chu Qingyan said coquettishly, "It's just 2 steps, it won't get in the way." Besides, Ethereal also said that walking more is beneficial for the birth, so mother, you don't have to worry. Besides, I also wanted to see father today. You're so eloquent. I can't win against you. Mrs. Chu laughed and shook her head. She held her mother's hand and pouted coquettishly, "Isn't it because mother loves me?" Chu Machen's mother smiled and helped her into the hall. Walking into the inner hall, Chu Qingyan saw her father lying on the bed. His sleeping appearance was as peaceful as ever. Her heart skipped a beat. "Mother, is father still the same?" Chu Machen's mother sighed and sat down by the bed. She wiped Chu Machen's face with a handkerchief and said slowly, "He's been like this ever since he came back. He's been sleeping like this ever since your father was sent back." She was referring to the battle 16 years ago where the entire army was annihilated. Chu Qingyan turned to look at Ethereal. Ethereal understood and walked up to Chu Machen's mother. "Old madam, I'll take old master's pulse again." Chu Machen's mother stepped aside. Ethereal sat down and focused on taking Chu Machen's pulse. After a while, he stood up and said to the two of them, "Old master's physical condition is still fine. He doesn't have a fever anymore. It's no different from sleeping. You still can't find out why he's still not waking up." Chu Qingyan frowned worriedly. Ethereal shook his head awkwardly. "There's nothing wrong with old master's body. As for why he's not waking up, I have no clue at all." But what?" Chu Qingyan was a little anxious. "Just say what you want to say. There's nothing you can't say." Ethereal nodded and told her his conjecture for the past 2 days. When old master recalled his memories, he had a high fever. He's having a fever again this time. I think it might be related to what happened last time. After Ethereal's reminder, she also remembered. "Is this good or bad?" Ethereal shook his head. "I can't say for sure. I've checked the medical records. It's possible that his brain was stimulated and he fell into a coma again. But when he'll wake up? It could be now, or it could be that he'll never wake up." Chu Machen's mother swayed. Fortunately, the palace maid beside her supported her and prevented her from falling to the ground. Yuanlang's life is too bitter. He's already been cleared of the defeat 16 years ago, but he still has to bear the pain of being framed by thieves for the rest of his life. Heaven is really too unfair. Chu Machen's mother thumped her chest, feeling very upset. She didn't expect him to accumulate military achievements to bring glory to his ancestors. She only wanted him to live well and stay by her side. Chu Qingyan hurriedly ordered people to support her mother. At this moment, she also had mixed feelings in her heart. She walked to the front of the bed and held her father's hand. She said tenderly and fondly, "Father, you have to wake up quickly. Otherwise, you won't be able to see the baby when it's born." After comforting her mother, Chu Qingyan led people back to Yansu Palace. "Master, you don't have to worry too much. Heaven helps the worthy. Old master has been through great storms in the past. He'll definitely be able to do it this time." Xining comforted her. Chu Qingyan patted her hand and sighed softly, "I hope so." Just a few steps away from Yansu Palace, Chu Qingyan felt waves of throbbing pain in her lower abdomen. She originally thought that it was a habitual throbbing pain like in the past and would be fine after a while. However, this time, the pain didn't slow down. Instead, it became more and more intense. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and then grabbed Xining's hand. She looked calmly at Ethereal, who was walking beside her, and said, "I'm afraid that I'm going to give birth." When these words were said, everyone trembled. Especially ethereal. When she heard her little princess consort's calm tone as if she was going to eat a melon, she almost exploded. Hurry, hurry, help your master into the hall. Someone come and prepare hot water. Hurry, call the midwife. The originally quiet palace immediately became lively and anxious. In the past few days, the palace had undergone a great purge. As expected, many spies were swept out. For a moment, the palace was heavily guarded. Even a fly couldn't fly in. But even so, Xiao Su still felt a little uneasy in his heart. It seemed that the purge this time was too smooth, so he kept feeling that something was wrong. However, everything seemed to be so logical that he couldn't find any clues. Master, are you troubled? Turan couldn't help but ask when he saw his master frowning. Xiao Su was silent for a moment before saying, recently, the palace needs to be patrolled more. It's best to send more people near Yen Su Palace. Take out a group of elites and take turns guarding 24 hours a day. Turan had just nodded in response when there were hurried footsteps outside. Turan wanted to go out and take a look to scold who was so unruly, but the people outside didn't stop that person and just let him in. When Turan saw him, he found that it was Shaoanzi of Yen Su Palace. He thought, why are you in such a hurry? What happened to the little princess consort? As soon as Shaoanzi came in, he didn't care about anything else and rushed to the new emperor, panting, Your Majesty, Nyang Nyang is going to give birth. As soon as he finished speaking, he looked up again. The bright yellow robe in front of him had already disappeared like a whirlwind. At this time, in another palace, the sleeping person slowly moved her fingers. Her mouth opened and closed as she laboriously said, I want to see my grandson. Chapter 1507. When Xiao Su arrived, the inner hall was already locked tight and could not be entered. Jin Xian was responsible for guarding the outside. When he saw Xiao Su, he immediately went forward and said, Your Majesty, before mistress went in, she told you to wait outside at ease and not be impulsive. Because giving birth in ancient times was too unlucky, husbands were usually not allowed to enter. But Chu Qingyan came from the modern era and did not have such thoughts. She just felt that giving birth was the ugliest. She did not want him to see her screaming herself hoarse. That would be a shadow for the rest of her life. Not just Jin Xian, a group of people were guarding outside, afraid that this new emperor would rush in because he doted on his little Wang Fei too much. No matter how worried Xiao Su was now, he would not be so muddle-headed as to rush into the delivery room. It was not that he cared about whether it was unlucky or not, but he knew that his presence was too strong and he was afraid of scaring the midwives. He could not accept any mishap happening to his wife and child. Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao had been in the palace. When they received the news, they immediately rushed over. The two had never experienced this kind of situation before. It was the first time a young lady had been on a sedan. It was not right to be anxious with their imperial brother. So Xiao Yao, this hedonist, immediately gave orders to the gonggang beside him. Soon, a table, chairs, tea, and snacks were placed in the hall. Xiao Yao immediately called for the two brothers to sit and rest. Come, come, come. We can't do anything outside. Why don't we talk about the interesting things that have happened recently? Xiao Ho did not think that he would not forget to have fun at this time and was convinced. But thinking about it from another angle, he was also trying to divert his imperial brother's attention. But who knew that Xiao Su waved his hand, you guys chat. He dismissed him. Xiao Yao almost choked and could not speak. He pointed at Xiao Su and said to Xiao Ho, but this is the first time I've seen imperial brothers so uneasy. So rare. Xiao Ho laughed softly, if it was your wife inside, you would not be sitting here drinking tea with a clear conscience. Finishing, his heart skipped a beat because the scene in his dream that night unconsciously appeared in his mind. The little rascal suddenly opened her eyes and said with tears, she was about to give birth. Even though she had not entered his dream since then, but that scene, every time he closed his eyes, he would remember it. Xiao Ho unconsciously tightened his grip on the cup. If Xiao Yao's reminder, the teacup would have been destroyed in his hands. All of you look so dejected. Xiao Yao shook his head. Forget it, I'll drink it myself. Grandfather, why are you always appearing? Hearing Xiao Yao's sobbing, Xiao Ho turned around and saw a retired emperor who was still drinking tea. Then he looked at his frightened Ji and couldn't help smiling as he stood up and bowed, "Greetings to Imperial Grandfather." At a time like this, there's no need for these empty formalities. The retired emperor waved his hand and looked deeply at this third imperial grandson. In the past, he always felt that this third grandson was strange and gloomy, but now that he had been reborn, the retired emperor was very satisfied. He looked at him affectionately and patted Xiao Yao's head. Who told you to drink so happily that you didn't even know that I was here? Xiao Yao felt very wronged. Ever since he was young, his grandfather loved to bully him the most. The retired emperor didn't pay any attention to his grandson who only knew how to play dumb. He looked at his eldest grandson who was standing restlessly as if he was looking at a rare treasure. Then, he raised his hand and pointed at the ice dregs. He said to the two beside him, "Look, this big ice dregs is also emitting heat. It's human." Xiao Yao was still squatting in the corner and drawing circles. Xiao Ho nodded noncommittally. It's indeed changed a lot. It's all thanks to royal sister-in-law. The retired emperor stroked his beard and said, "Indeed, so Qing Yan and her son will definitely be safe." Although he didn't understand how his grandfather's irrelevant words connected, Xiao Ho thought that the mother and child would definitely be safe. Xiao Su paced back and forth, his gaze never leaving the inner hall. He opened his ears and constantly captured the sounds inside, hoping to hear something. But at this time, basin after basin of bloody water was carried out. Xiao Su's body trembled as he stared at the bloody water. The palace maids holding the basins were so scared that their legs almost went soft. Xiao Yao saw the bloody water and sucked in a breath. Oh my God, this baby was scared to death. Xiao Ho looked inside the door with some worry. At this time, Xiao Su already couldn't hold back and wanted to rush in. What reason? What waiting? Damn it all to hell. The retired emperor immediately had Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao stop him. The two of them spent a lot of effort to keep him outside. At this time, the retired emperor walked in front of Xiao Su and said resentfully, "You silly boy, you haven't seen the world yet. Giving birth is like this. You will get used to it after giving birth to a few more. Now you know your mother's pain. So in the future, you must know how to be filial to your mother." These words made them fall silent. One mother had already died of old age and no longer had any contact with them. One mother had entered Buddhism and was preparing to concentrate on cultivation. One mother had already been separated by heaven and man and would never see each other again. The retired emperor also thought of this and sighed. He patted each of them on the shoulder. This is the sorrow of being born in the imperial family. You guys, don't let the next generation follow in your footsteps. Take it easy. Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao nodded as they were taught. Xiao Su's mind wasn't on this at all. He was scratching his heart and lungs, really wanting to go in and see how the little fellow was doing. At this time, the inner hall was indeed burning with anxiety and chaos. Because at the beginning of the pain, Chu Qingyan could still bear it and didn't cry out, Xiao Su couldn't hear anything from outside. But now, she couldn't. This kind of pain was different from the pain of martial arts and fighting injuries. She couldn't bear the pain and cried out a few times. Outside, Xiao Su's mind filled in her painful cries as wails and he almost charged in again. She naturally didn't know what was going on outside. She only felt that she was in so much pain that she wanted to die. She secretly gritted her teeth. This baby is in so much pain. After giving birth to this baby, she won't give birth anymore. But how could there be so many things in life that she could predict? But this was a story for later. Let's not talk about it for now. Your Highness, the head is coming out. Quickly use more strength. The midwife cried out in alarm. Chu Qingyan originally didn't have much strength, but when she heard this, she immediately used all her strength. With this strength, it seemed like something slipped out. She cried out in surprise, "It's coming out, it's coming out." As a man, Ethereal couldn't go in, but Chu Qingyan didn't have much confidence in the ancient midwifery techniques. So before this, she had him wait at the side in case of any accidents. Hearing this, Ethereal immediately heaved a sigh of relief. He could answer to his master now. But at this time, the midwife, who was silently working at the side, suddenly snatched the baby that had just been carried out. She took a few steps back and raised the baby up high. With a sinister expression, she said, "Haha, I finally got it. Chu Qingyan, you also have this day." The unforeseen event happened in an instant. No one could react in time. Chu Qingyan heard this in a daze and woke up with a start. "What are you doing to my child?" "Consort you orders to let you experience the pain of losing your flesh and blood," that person said and ruthlessly threw the baby to the ground. Don't. Chapter 1508. The child, who hadn't been cleaned, had his eyes tightly shut. Before he could open his eyes to see the world, he was ruthlessly smashed to the ground. No one was by the old woman's side. Even if they wanted to save the child, it was too late. They could only watch as the child suffered a tragic fate. Chu Qingyan's heart was gripped. She felt as if she couldn't breathe and her heart was about to break. In the blink of an eye, a jade-green figure pounced towards the ground and caught the child who had been thrown to the ground. Unable to withstand the momentum, the figure rolled a few times and smashed into a pillar. However, after stabilizing her body, Jasper raised her head and grinned at her master. "The little master is fine. This subordinate has protected him." Jasper rarely smiled, but this smile was like sunlight shining into everyone's hearts. They couldn't help but smile with her. Jasper was originally a member of the Howling Cavalry. Later, she was transferred to her master's side as an attendant. She could usually serve tea and water, but she didn't know anything about midwifery. Thus, she could only guard in the corner of the hall like a shadow. The old woman had been paying attention to everyone and didn't notice Jasper, who was like a ghost. Thus, by a freak combination of factors, she retreated to her side, allowing Jasper to seize the opportunity to act. As she spoke, a trace of blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth. However, she didn't care. She wiped it away and stood up. Only then did Chu Qingyan completely relax her body. She had been so shocked, and she had used up all her energy to give birth. The moment she heaved a sigh of relief, she fainted. "Master! Little Princess Consort!" After hearing the little fellow's mournful cries, Xiao Su pushed away his two brothers with a single palm strike and quickly entered the inner hall. At this time, as luck would have it, he pushed open the door and heard them shouting for the little fellow. He staggered and almost tripped over the doorsill and fell down. He didn't care about his status or elegance. His entire person seemed to have lost his soul as he directly threw himself at the person with pale cheeks on the floor. His trembling hands caressed her face. "Ian, don't scare me. Wake up. You can't abandon me. Let's not have any more children. I just want you to wake up." Xining raised her hand weakly. "Your Majesty, Master just fainted from exhaustion and will wake up later. If you don't want the little prince like this, he will be sad in the future." Xiao Su's mind was still on the woman he loved on the couch. He didn't react until Xining finished speaking. He stared at Xining. "You said Ian just fainted and her life isn't in danger?" Xining couldn't help but shudder when she was stared at by his dark eyes. It was as if she dared to say that her master wouldn't wake up, she would be killed by his gaze. She hurriedly nodded. Yes, there's no danger. Don't worry." Before Xiao Su could react, something soft was suddenly stuffed into his arms. He lowered his head and saw a wrinkled baby biting its little finger, sleeping soundly. His first reaction was, "So ugly." This was probably the first child since the founding of the Sichuan Empire that his imperial father didn't want him as soon as he was born. It was also the first child that his imperial father disliked for being ugly as soon as he was born. At this moment, the baby's heart was crumbling. This baby wants mommy, not daddy. After experiencing the two great joys and sorrows of life, Xiaosu seemed to have lost all his strength. He sat on the couch and raised his hand to stroke his wife tenderly. He then looked down at his son who was sucking his finger. He suddenly felt that there was no moment more perfect than this. At this moment, Ethereal saw that her master's emotions had calmed down and began to report what had just happened. That old woman was also a martial artist. She originally thought that she would be able to complete her task, but who knew that someone would come out of the blue. When Ethereal saw that she had been rescued, she immediately subdued the old woman and threw her to the palace servants. Only then did she dare to go forward to report to her master. As soon as she finished speaking, the atmosphere in the room suddenly became a few degrees colder. Everyone rubbed their arms, feeling as if they were about to freeze to death. Xiaosu handed the child to Xining, then stood up and slowly walked towards the old woman. Step by step, it was as if he was stepping on a glacier. Even the old woman, who had a fearless expression just now, couldn't help but want to retreat, but she was caught and couldn't move. You were sent by Fu Yue. His tone was cold and his gaze was as cold as ink, as if the person in front of him was already a dead person. So what if I am? Don't think that you can sit back and relax just because you're sitting in this position now. Master said that you will pay for. Before she could finish speaking, the old woman flew out like a kite with a broken string and landed heavily on the ground. No one saw Xiaosu make a move, but the old woman was sent flying. It was obvious that this person's martial arts skills were superb. You're overestimating yourself. At this time, Ethereal seemed to have discovered something. He quickly walked over and reached out to touch the old woman's face. Soon, he tore off a human skin mask. Ethereal was shocked. He didn't expect this person to be able to wander around under his nose for several months without being discovered. He turned around and knelt down in front of the person behind him. Think carefully about how you're going to explain this to me. Xiaosu threw down these words, then flung his sleeves and walked back. Ethereal prostrated himself on the ground, unable to say a word. Because of his negligence, the little prince had almost been, the people outside had been waiting impatiently for a long time, but these people were all shrewd people. They had already smelled something unusual in the air. At this time, no matter how worried and nervous they were, they could only firmly suppress it. At this time, a child wrapped in bright yellow swaddling clothes appeared in front of everyone. Io, this is this emperor's good great-grandson. Good, good. The Emperor Emeritus took the child. After knowing that it was a boy, he couldn't stop smiling. Although it was a bit regretful that it wasn't a girl, it was already very good that both mother and child were safe. Ah, so wrinkled, like a monkey. Xiao Yao, who had just squeezed over to take a look and spoke the truth, was rudely knocked on the head by his imperial grandfather. Xiao Ho stared at the child without blinking. The more he looked, the more he doted on him. Imperial grandfather, let grandson hold him. The Emperor Emeritus very straightforwardly handed the child to him, even reminding him to be careful. Xiao Yao pursed his lips. Imperial grandfather, you're too biased. You won't let me hold him, but let Lao Sen hold him. The Emperor Emeritus glanced at him unhappily, as if to say, look at how clumsy you are. All right. Third prince went to squat in the corner and draw circles again. The Emperor Emeritus laughed mischievously. He turned to look at Xiao Ho's fondness and stroked his beard. If you like it, then give birth to one yourself. Xiao Ho only smiled when he heard this. The Emperor Emeritus naturally knew about the incident between him and Pang Zhijing. He thought that this was a child with a hard life, so he didn't say anything else. Instead, he turned to Pat Hualing who was nervously looking at the little prince. Don't look, we won't touch your little master. That's right, where is your master? He's with the little princess consort. Hualing laughed mischievously as he replied, Master said, you can play with the child as you wish. It's fine as long as you don't disturb him. The Emperor Emeritus rolled his eyes. He didn't even want a newborn son. As expected, he was someone who didn't want anything when he had a wife. Chapter 1509. It was almost evening, and the crowd dispersed, leaving the family of 3 alone. Xiao Su was clumsily holding his crying son. He was a little flustered. He didn't know why, but the child began to cry while sleeping well, so he shook his arms to coax him. Chu Qingyan opened her eyes and saw this scene. Although she felt it was funny, she also felt touched. Maybe he's hungry. Bring him over and I'll feed him. As soon as this soft and weak voice came out, Xiao Su immediately walked up with joy. Ayan, you're awake. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I just feel weak all over. Everything else is fine. Seeing that she woke up and was smiling as sweetly as before, Xiao Su couldn't help but reach out and hug her. It's good that you're fine. She was a little surprised by his excitement and the extreme emotions in his eyes. It seemed that something had happened while she was asleep that she didn't know about. At this moment, their son's loud cry disrupted the little atmosphere that had just started to develop between the two of them. Chu Qingyan quickly asked him to give the child to her. Xiao Su frowned. This child really knew how to cause trouble, but he obediently handed over his son. Seeing that the little guy was so satisfied with the child, Xiao Su's heart ached. It seemed that the little guy would no longer be his alone in the future. Xiao Su sighed. Forget it, forget it. Seeing that he was still a little small, he would reluctantly give in to him. So the baby didn't know that he was despised by his own papa again. At this time, he was focused on drinking milk. At this time, the baby was moist and no longer wrinkled. Chu Qingyan looked down at the baby. Water Spirit was so cute that her heart couldn't help but melt. He's so good-looking. Xiao Su thought that beauty was indeed in the eye of the beholder. He was so ugly when he was just born. Seeing that the little guy was so focused on his son that she didn't even look at him, Xiao Su felt for the first time in his life what it meant to be left out. Although he did not want to admit this feeling, he could not help but want to correct his own sense of existence. He cleared his throat and said, "The old woman who wanted to hurt you and your child has confessed." Then, he picked out some important things to tell her. Only after the big ice cube mentioned it did she remember this matter. She gave a cold snort. "I didn't think that imperial concubine you would be this crazy. She actually thinks that Xiao Ran was killed by us. Wasn't it all because of her that Xiao Ran ended up like that? I've never seen such a ruthless mother." Perhaps it was because she was already a mother, but Chu Qingyan hated Consort Yu even more. The child in her arms was small, soft, and so cute. Every parent would want to see their child grow up and give them the best. They couldn't wait to love them, so why would they force them to do something they didn't want to do and let them go astray? Xiao Su was not surprised by the little guy's righteous indignation. He held her in his arms and said softly, "Don't be angry because of others." She leaned against his chest and held her child in her arms. At this moment, she felt a different kind of happiness and joy in her heart. Big Ice Cube, we have to be a pair of good parents and teach our child well. We don't expect him to be great, we just hope that he can be an indomitable man. Hearing the person in his arms softly describe the future, Xiao Su felt that his heart was more complete. Yes, I'll teach him to strengthen his body, and you teach him how to be a man. However, no matter how mediocre my child is, he will be the best one. Chu Qingyan nodded heavily. She thought of something and looked up with sparkling eyes. Big Ice Cube, let's give him a nickname. What do you think? Xiao Su looked at her gently. She lowered her head and thought for a while before saying seriously, "After what happened today, I found that no matter how much I hope for the child, it's just that he can be safe and happy and have a smooth life. So let's call him Nkong. As for his name, you can give it to him after you think about it. It's up to you." At this time, Xiao Su doted on his wife. Even if she gave him 2 dogs and 3 cats, he would still nod his head. Receiving the Big Ice Cube's response, Chu Qingyan lowered her head to tease her son. "Nkong, I'll call you Nkong from now on. I only hope that you will be safe and healthy." After feeding the child, Chu Qingyan hugged Kong and coaxed him, letting him sleep peacefully in her arms. At this time, Huo Ling stumbled in. Xiao Su wanted to scold him for being so rash, but Huo Ling's words stunned the two of them. "Master, little Princess Consort, the old man has woken up." This was great news. Chu Qingyan was so excited that she almost died. She had just given birth and was about to get out of bed to take a look, but Xiao Su held her back. She only stopped when he looked at her disapprovingly. She suppressed her emotions and grabbed the big ice cube's hand. She said with tears in her eyes, "Big ice cube, did you hear that? My father is awake, he's awake. The heavens really did not mistreat any good person. I heard it. Father-in-law is awake, so you should be relieved." But Huo Ling muttered in his heart, "I can't be relieved. If you see the old man's current state, I'm afraid." At this time, the sound of bustling footsteps came from afar, and there seemed to be a voice shouting. Chu Qingyan listened carefully. The voice was very familiar, and she immediately became excited. "Big ice cube, it seems like father is here." Xiao Su also heard the voice. He was about to respond, but the person had already entered the inner hall and ran in front of them. "Kai Kai, father's good daughter, let father see his grandson." A handsome man with a straw nest on his head spoke up. Chu Qingyan blinked. She didn't have time to react as she obediently handed the child over. Xiao Su reminded him from the side, "Father-in-law, it's your grandson." "It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. He's still father's good baby." Father Chu glared at his son-in-law. Then he began to shake his arms, foolishly looking at the baby in his arms. "Yo, this nose is like father's. Yo, these eyes are like his grandmother's. Yo, this mouth is also like his grandmother's." Chu Qingyan was stunned. "How is that like me?" Father Chu looked for a long time. "This drooling looks like you." Chu Qingyan cried out and threw herself into her big ice cube's arms. Xiao Su patted her back to comfort her. At least she still had some similarities. When the little master was born, Huo Ling had already held him. At this time, he quietly interjected, "This subordinate feels that the little master resembles master in every way." After saying that, Father Chu slapped him on the head. "What nonsense are you spouting?" Thus, the reunion that was supposed to be a tearful reunion turned into a scene that didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When Mother Chu rushed over with people and saw this scene, she couldn't help but laugh. But Father Chu still looked a little strange. It was as if he no longer had the clarity he had when he was leading the charge. Xiao Su put this question in his heart and planned to have Ethereal take a good look at him. Chapter 15:10. When Ethereal checked Mr. Chu's pulse again, he found that his pulse was normal. However, he could not understand why he had returned to his previous state. Chu Qingyan looked at her father worriedly. "Father, do you still remember what happened on the battlefield?" "I remember. But why does father feel like it was all a dream?" "In my dream, father was so impressive. He led so many people into battle and defeated the enemy. Ha ha ha, so impressive." As he spoke, Mr. Chu threw his head back and roared with laughter, as if he had said something incredible. A dream? Had all those proud achievements on the battlefield become nothing but a dream to her father? After Mr. Chu finished speaking, he saw that everyone was looking at him in silence. He scratched the back of his head and said impatiently, "Is there anything else? If not, I'm going to see my grandson." After he finished speaking, he skipped off to look for his grandson without waiting for anyone's response. Xiao Su held his wife's hand tightly. When she turned around, he gave her a reassuring look. Chu Qingyan relaxed and no longer felt so tense. She then asked Ethereal, "Can't you tell what the reason is?" Ethereal frowned and thought for a moment. "This subordinate has a bold guess, but I don't know if it's valid." Xiao Su bluntly asked him to continue. Kong Ling nodded, "It's like this. Previously, the old man recalled everything because of a high fever. Now, because of the fever, he treats everything that happened after the fever as a dream. This subordinate thinks that the fever is inseparable from the fever. This subordinate reckons that the old man was stimulated by something that triggered the fever. This subordinate boldly speculates that the old man was worried about the safety of master and the little princess, which triggered his original memories. When the dust settled and he no longer needed help, he returned to his original naive self. The above are all this subordinate's conjectures. Although Ethereal's explanation was a little far-fetched, it was the only explanation that could explain the past so far. Just as everyone was shocked by Ethereal's words, Chu Qingyan recalled that she had heard of such a situation in modern times. Some people would forget a lot of things because of a fall or trauma, resulting in two personalities. The former personality would fall into a deep sleep, but the person would live in a completely different form from the past. However, one day, something would happen and the dormant personality would be awakened. After the problem was solved, the dormant personality would fall into a deep sleep again, and the completely different personality would continue to live. Therefore, she thought that perhaps father was in such a situation. At this time, there were still matters to attend to in the imperial court, so Xiao Su was called away by Xiao Ho. Many people in the hall, leaving only the family. Chu Qingyan collected her thoughts and looked at her mother, who had been staring at her father. While everyone else was still in shock, she noticed that her mother had been very calm. She was a little worried and couldn't help but ask, "What's going on? Mother, what do you think about father's current situation?" Mrs. Chu's attention was drawn back by her daughter. She turned her head and smiled. "What else can I think? As long as your father is alive, it's fine." Chu Qingyan was a little distressed. "Do you feel regretful? You won't be able to see father's lucid face again." Father had fallen into a coma not long after he came back from a fever. Mother didn't even say a few words to him. Chu Machin's mother came over and sat down beside her bed. She reached out and held her hand with a calm smile on her face. She continued, 16 years ago, when your father was carried back from the battlefield covered in blood, I blamed him. It wasn't because outsiders had framed him, but because he couldn't come back alive, causing his wife and daughter to worry about him. However, during this period, he had a high fever and didn't wake up. I started to feel scared, afraid that he wouldn't make it. At that time, I thought that as long as he was safe, even if he broke his arms and legs, I would take care of him for the rest of my life. Fortunately, in the end, the heavens heard my prayers and he woke up. Although he became like a child, I accepted it. Mother, Kai, as long as he's alive, there's still time. If he's gone, then there's really no way to find him. So as long as your father is alive, no matter what he becomes, I won't leave him." Chu Qingyan's eyes reddened. Perhaps in the eyes of others, her mother was delicate and weak, but such delicate shoulders supported the family during the most difficult times. She withstood the pressure of the world. Even if she was chased out of the Chu family, she gritted her teeth and left the capital with her sick and ignorant husband and newborn daughter to build a new home. Her husband's mind was like that of a child. It was equivalent to raising 2 children, but she had no regrets. She guarded the family, guarded her husband, and guarded her children. Her heart was the same as before. Water was soft, but it was also strong. As a mother, she was strong. As a wife, she was strong. Therefore, her mother was an admirable and strong woman. Chu Qingyan opened her arms and hugged her. "Mother, you're the greatest mother, and also the greatest wife." Faint traces of tears appeared in Mrs. Chu's eyes. When that came back, he was just like when she first met him 10 or 20 years ago. He didn't have any dementia. She knew at a glance that he was back. He walked in front of her and hugged her with tears in his eyes. "Dan Yang, you've suffered for the past 10 years. I'm sorry." She shook her head and cried. "No, it's all worth it. For you, it's all worth it. But I may not be able to stay for long." "Where are you going?" "Dan Yang, while there's still time, I have something to say to you. If there's a next life, let's be husband and wife again." "You fool, before she could finish speaking, he fell into her arms and fell into a coma. When Mr. Chu realized that something was wrong with his body, he put down everything he was doing and rushed back. If he didn't love her to the bone, he wouldn't have rushed thousands of miles every day just to say a few words to her. Kai Kai, so you see, your father is still alive. Although he's a little retarded, his feelings for me are still the same. So what's there for me to complain about? It's a gift from the heavens that he's alive. Chu Qingyan followed her mother's gaze and saw her father lying on the cradle. He was making funny faces at the child in the cradle, making himself laugh. At this moment, her father seemed to have noticed her gaze. He turned around and waved at his wife with a sincere smile. Mother, I don't want anything else in this life. I'm satisfied as long as I can be with your father. You and I are husband and wife, and we love each other without a doubt. In wealth and in poverty, in health and in sickness, we love and respect each other until death do us part. In life and in death, we will never leave each other. Chapter 15:11. The new emperor's ascension to the throne brought peace to the four seas. Another prince was born, and the entire nation celebrated. After the chaos of war, Sichuan ushered in peaceful days. Although they were not as prosperous as before, at least things were slowly getting better. Especially since happy events happened one after another. After learning that the new emperor had a descendant, the courtiers who had been thinking of stuffing their daughters into the harem finally gave up. If Chu Qingyan had given birth to a princess, they would still have a chance. What a pity. However, the courtiers were also happy. After all, the new emperor had given birth to a son, which was a good sign. With Master Su Jian in charge, everyone felt that good days were coming for Sichuan. Just as everyone was cheering and celebrating, some people were feeling depressed. At this moment, Xiao Su was staring intently at the little child who was yawning and leaning on his wife's body. He felt very uncomfortable. He had been sitting here for 2 hours and the time it took to brew a cup of tea. During this time, other than when he first entered the hall and his wife asked someone to bring him a cup of tea, she didn't look at him again. He had never experienced this kind of treatment ever since he got together with the little fellow. He had always had a strong presence, but now he was sitting on the bench. He coughed softly. No one paid him any attention. He coughed softly again. Still, no one paid him any attention. At this moment, his wife was happily chatting with his mother-in-law. Mother, look, Kangkang is so cute. He's eating with his little hands. Wow, Kangkang is smiling at me. Kangkang's eyes are so bright. At this moment, Xiao Su's mood was very sour. Mrs. Chu watched her son-in-law's every move from the side. She did not expect her all-powerful son-in-law to have such a side. She could not help but laugh. She reached out to carry her grandson and winked at her daughter. Your father was just saying that he wanted to see the baby. I'll bring him over for him. You accompany your son-in-law. After this reminder, Chu Qingyan realized that her big ice cube was still there. After her mother left, she said in surprise, Big ice cube, you're still here. I thought you left. Xiao Su felt like he had received a million blows to his heart. He glanced at her coldly, then picked up his teacup and ignored her. Chu Qingyan was a little stunned by his gaze. Could it be that he was throwing a tantrum? It shouldn't be like this. However, it was obvious that he was at odds with her. Chu Qingyan was both surprised and curious. She rolled her eyes and had a flash of inspiration. All right, since you're ignoring me, I'll go over if you don't want to come over. She pretended to lift the quilt and was about to get out of bed, but a slender and powerful arm had already stopped her movement. She was secretly delighted. Sure enough, it was still like this. You're still in confinement. You can't be exposed to the wind. As soon as Xiao Su finished speaking, he felt his cheeks heat up. He lowered his head just in time to see her shrink back. She was smiling brightly at him, and her face was still warm and wet. I'll make it up to you. I neglected you just now. Chu Qingyan stuck her tongue out at him. The steadiness and affection she had used to coax the child was gone, and in its place was cuteness and tenderness. Xiao Su's throat tightened, and he said hoarsely, "You want to dismiss me like this? Don't you think it's too casual?" She knew that she was in the wrong, so she said with an unnatural expression, "Then what do you want?" Xiao Su whispered a few words in her ear, and her face instantly turned as red as an apple. Just as she was about to scold him for being a hooligan, he had already seized the opportunity and grabbed her slightly opened lips. Deep and teasing. There were layers of gauze, and she could only vaguely see the two figures entwined with each other. Because she had just given birth, Xiao Su only dared to touch her lightly. Otherwise, he would be the one burning. After they separated, she leaned against his chest and closed her eyes to catch her breath. Suddenly, she heard him say in her ear, "There's no next time." Just as she was about to ask what next time, her brain reacted. She opened her eyes and smiled. "Why? Are you jealous?" Xiao Su lowered his head and saw the teasing in her eyes. He snorted softly. Not to that extent. Not to the extent of being jealous of his own son. Chu Qingyan raised her hand and poked his chest. "Tisk, tsk, tsk. You're making people suspicious. But Big Ice Cube, that's your son. So what if he's my son? Even a son can't snatch a woman from his father." "I know." Xiao Su looked away and replied uncomfortably. At this moment, Chu Qingyan seemed to have thought of something and retracted her hand. Her gaze was serious and suspicious. "Big Ice Cube, tell me honestly. Do you not like your son?" Xiao Su was stunned. Seeing him like this, she was even more certain of her guess. Seeing him push her away, she sneered. "I knew it. Ever since Kong was born, you haven't hugged him much. I felt that something was wrong. Now I can see what you're thinking. You don't like your son at all." The in his arms disappeared immediately. Xiao Su felt that he hadn't hugged enough, but the most important thing right now was to resolve his wife's misunderstanding. He sighed. "How can I not like my own son? It's just that ever since he was born, there have been so many people fighting to hold him. How could it be my turn? Moreover, the court is busy. When I went to court, Kong was still asleep. When I came back, Kong was already asleep. Today, it was only because he had accumulated all his official work last night that he had the time to accompany the mother and daughter." Upon hearing Big Ice Cube's explanation, Chu Qingyan suddenly snapped out of her daze. It was true. After their son was born, the line of people fighting to hold him almost reached the palace gates. Imperial grandfather, father, mother, Xiao, it was really a sea. Big Ice Cube was especially busy during this period of time. Every time she saw him, he looked tired. She felt that she had really neglected him recently. She hugged him again with guilt. "I shouldn't have said that. It's been hard on you during this period of time." Xiao Su gently pinched her face. "It's not hard. You, on the other hand, have been tired during this period of time." Chu Qingyan snuggled into his arms. "I'm in charge of looking beautiful, and you're in charge of earning money to support the family. We have a clear division of labor. You've also been tired. I'll accompany you well today." "Okay." They quietly accompanied each other. Without saying anything, they could feel each other's fondness and tenderness. Xiao Su stroked her long hair from time to time. The warmth and softness in his arms calmed him down. He lowered his head and wanted to say something, but the person in his arms had already fallen asleep. Her breathing was long, and her sleeping face was quiet and elegant. He chuckled softly and laid her flat on the bed, covering her with the blanket. He just sat there and looked at her, as if he couldn't get enough of looking at her in this lifetime. After a while, there was a sound of footsteps outside the hall. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and walked out. He didn't want anyone to disturb the little fellow's rest. But when he stepped out of the inner hall, he bumped into the old master. "Inverted Scallion, you came at the right time. I'm going to accompany Dan Yang for a walk. Kang Kang, watch for a while. As soon as he finished speaking, a soft little thing was stuffed into his hand. Before Xiao Su could react, the person was already gone. He lowered his head and was caught off guard by a pair of big, bright eyes. Chapter 15:12. His bright and moving eyes were like the sparkling stars on a lake. They were like all the beautiful things in the world. With just one look, Xiao Su felt as if he had been conquered by this pair of eyes. Xiao Su held him with both hands, not knowing what position to use. He had held a bow, a sword, and a knife. He had tried the sharpest and hardest weapons in the world, but he had never felt that the thing in his hands was so soft and fragile. It was as if he would be hurt if he used a little force. It was as if it would melt in his mouth and break in his hands. This was the first time he had felt this way. It was very novel and moving, and he couldn't bear to part with it. Just as Xiao Su's body stiffened and he was thinking about what to do with the baby suddenly grinned at him. That sound was like the tinkling of a clear spring, the gentle breeze, and the drizzle. It was comparable to any beautiful sound in the world. Xiao Su's heart melted at his smile. He held him in his arms and walked towards the inner hall. Along the way, the palace servants who came and went were stunned by His Majesty's appearance, as if he was possessed by a warm father. Everyone was doubting themselves. Am I seeing things? Am I seeing things? Although the baby was less than a month old and couldn't speak, he still had a strong sense of familiarity with the person holding him. Yaya, baby language translation online, Papa, Papa. Although Xiao Su didn't understand what the baby was saying, this was the first time he heard the baby talk to him. His heart was filled with excitement, and he felt more accomplished than when he fought with the courtiers. He was thinking, why is my son so good-looking? Why is he so smart? Why is he so lovable? That pink face was soft and smooth. Xiao Su raised his finger and hesitated for a while before he dared to touch it lightly. That soft feeling almost melted his heart. And the baby seemed to like this kind of intimacy very much. He danced with joy. Yaya, baby language translation online, Papa, kiss. Before he could retract his finger, the baby grabbed it and stuffed it into his mouth. Xiao Su was stunned by his actions. Then, looking at his happy expression, Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. This was his closest blood relative in this world. This feeling was really mysterious. He lowered his head and gently touched the baby's forehead with his forehead. He said lovingly, "You're very good. Imperial Father loves you very much." Chu Qingyan opened her eyes, and this was the scene that greeted her. Her family's big ice cube was playing with the baby in his arms with a small toy in his hand. He had been a strong and determined man all his life. At this moment, he was exuding the light of a loving father. She was dazed and her eyes couldn't help but moisten. Why would she ask Big Ice Cube such a stupid question? It wasn't that Big Ice Cube didn't care about the baby, but he was too introverted and never showed it. Outside the window, the sun was shining brightly. Chu Qingyan glanced sideways slightly. She felt that this spring was really warm, and it warmed her heart. From that day onwards, the little baby seemed to recognize people. As long as he saw his imperial father, no matter who was in his arms, he would open his arms and cry out, "Yaya," as if he was saying, "Papa hug, Papa hug." This shattered countless people's glass hearts. The Emperor Emeritus was heartbroken. "This little brat, I'll give you whatever you want. Why did you betray me in the blink of an eye?" Papa Chu scratched the wall and ground, "My grandson forgot about his grandfather after having a father." Dan Yang, baby's heart is bitter. Chu Qingyan's heart was sour. "Didn't you say that your son was your lover in your previous life? Why is your lover fighting with you for a lover in this life?" Hua Ling and the others looked at the sky. Master actually turned into a super invincible stay-at-home dad. This scene was simply too beautiful. They didn't dare to look. And Xiao Su enjoyed this feeling very much. The feeling of being liked and even relied on by his son was really too wonderful. So early in the morning, Xiao Su quietly got up and planted a morning kiss on his wife's forehead. After he finished dressing, he prepared to go to court. However, when he passed by the cradle, he habitually stopped to take a look at the baby. In the past, the baby always hugged the quilt and fell asleep, but today was different. His dark eyes rolled around as if he was waiting for him to appear. He waved his arms and legs, wanting him to carry him. Xiao Su's heart softened and he picked up the baby. He coaxed him and prepared to let him continue sleeping. Unfortunately, the baby seemed to be prepared as he tightly tugged on his sleeve and cried out, "Ya." Xiao Su was amused by him. "You don't want Imperial Father to leave." The baby immediately gave him a big smile. Xiao Su laughed and shook his head. He really couldn't do anything about it. So when Xiao Su passed by Xining with Kang Kang in his arms, he threw down a sentence, "This one is taking Kang Kang to court. When your master wakes up, let her know." When Xining reacted, they were already far away. Xining couldn't help sighing. This little master was truly too doted on by His Majesty. When Chu Qingyan woke up and learned of this news, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really was doting on her to the heavens. At this time, the civil and military officials were lined up to respectfully welcome the new emperor into the hall. Xiao Su walked in and everyone knelt down to welcome him. The black imperial robe swept across the ground and the corners of everyone's eyes. The thoughts of the officials were, His Majesty was still so noble and unapproachable. But at this time, a "ya" sound rang out. The thoughts of the officials were, this sound was like the wind breaking through the waves. It was crisp and pleasant to the ears, very pleasant to the ears. Wait, where did the sound of a baby come from? When the eunuch shouted, "Rise," the officials finally dared to raise their heads. However, the new emperor's majesty was too great and no one dared to look directly at him. But from this height, they could just see the infant lying in the new emperor's arms. That pair of bright eyes and delicate skin. It was really a cute and lovable child. Wait, this couldn't be the little prince, right? Everyone looked at each other and suddenly felt ecstatic. They didn't expect to see the little prince's true appearance. They were simply too lucky. However, the baby who had already gotten his way didn't know how big of a commotion he had caused. At this time, he was looking around. This chair is so strange. What's that? Round? Why are there so many people below? Grandpa, beard. Ha. The officials who were presenting memorials couldn't help but lower their voices, afraid that they would scare the little prince who was attending court for the first time. Also, every time someone spoke, the little prince would look over with his bright and beautiful eyes. So the hall had become like this. Once an official who was presenting a memorial raised a problem, the little prince would look over with his bright eyes, and that official would take the problem on his own. This humble official should solve this problem by himself. There is no need for your majesty to worry. Or when the little prince looked around, the other officials would scramble to stand up. This humble official will take care of this problem. There is no need for your majesty to worry. So during the entire morning court, Xiao Su didn't have a single thing to worry about. After the court was dismissed, Xiao Su kissed his son's face and chuckled. Looks like I can bring you out to play more in the future. The baby in his arms stretched and prepared to catch up on sleep. He asked, "What is going to court? Can it be eaten?" The baby didn't know anything. Chapter 15:13. Why haven't I seen Ethereal in the past few days? Chu Qingyan enjoyed being fed by Big Ice Cube personally. She was enjoying her life, and when she was living a carefree life, she would start to pay attention to the people around her. As she did so, she realized that she had not seen Kong Ling for a long time, and so she asked her about it. Xiao Su wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. When he heard her question, he said calmly, "He's receiving his punishment in the torture chamber." This answer immediately pulled her back to the dangerous scene on the day of the birth. Consort Yu's people had disguised themselves as midwives and infiltrated the palace. Strictly speaking, this incident was due to Ethereal's incompetence in supervising. However, that person's disguise was perfect. If one had not seen the person in person before, it would have been difficult to recognize them. Moreover, Ethereal was so busy that his feet barely touched the ground during that period of time, so he did not have the energy to distinguish them one by one. Therefore, in a broader sense, the blame could not be entirely placed on Ethereal. Thus, Chu Qingyan explained her analysis to him. When she was done, she even pleaded for leniency. Your wife and son were only able to have a successful birth because of Ethereal's wholehearted care. Therefore, even if there is no credit, there is still hard work. Moreover, this credit is great. You can't treat your subordinates like this. Otherwise, they won't recognize you as their master in the future. After listening to the little fellow's rambling, Xiao Su's eyes curved into a smile. He scooped up a spoonful of soup and stuffed it in her mouth. Eat your food properly. Chu Qingyan puffed up her cheeks and glared at him. She crushed a piece of cartilage with her teeth. Xiao Su shook his head. He thought that if he did not explain this matter to her clearly, she would not give up. Thus, he put the bowl aside and leaned back in his chair. He looked like he was going to have a long talk with her. The punishment was requested by him. It was not my idea. Chu Qingyan swallowed the meat in her mouth and raised her eyebrows in disbelief. Xiao Su knew that she would think that way. He was not surprised at all. He continued, every member of the valiant Blaze Cavalry is very disciplined. If they make a mistake in their mission, or if they don't do their job well, they will accept the punishment themselves. This is a rule that everyone has tacitly agreed to. It is also because of this that it is even more difficult to make any mistakes. Ethereal has indeed made a mistake in principle. If Jasper didn't save them, the result was not what everyone expected, so Xiao Su continued, so even if I don't punish him, he won't be able to get over it. There are no ifs and buts when Xiao Lai does things. So, to make himself feel better, he has been staying in the torture chamber for the past 2 days. Chu Qingyan was silent. She had been with the valiant Blaze Cavalry in Lianqing for many years. She knew that they were people who strived for perfection. They were cruel to their enemies, but even crueler to themselves. Turan had once said that if they were careless, they would be the ones to die. Thus, she could understand how they felt. She tilted her head and said, I understand. But no matter how you punish him, it will be enough. It has been almost half a month. I don't want Yen Luo to cry to me when she comes back. Xiao Su reached out and pinched her nose. I understand. She smiled brightly at him. In the afternoon, Xiao Su appeared outside the torture chamber. At this moment, Ethereal walked out with one hand on his shoulder. His footsteps were a little unsteady. When he saw the slender figure on the ground, he slowly raised his head. When he saw who it was, he immediately knelt down and saluted with his back straight. Master! Get up! Xiao Su raised his hand. Thank you, Master. Ethereal tried his best to appear normal and not reveal a trace of pain. Xiao Su frowned when he saw that Ethereal's forehead was covered in cold sweat and he was barely holding on. It's about time. It's time to go back to work. Ethereal immediately replied, I've already given the instructions. The herbs have been sorted and collected. As long as Xining and the rest follow the prescription, there won't be any problems. Xiao Su looked at him without saying a word. Ethereal couldn't stand his master's gaze and was the first to admit defeat. He knelt down again with a defeated expression. Master, I feel terrible. It's my fault for not doing my job well and almost causing harm to little master. I've come to the torture chamber to lessen my guilt. This will make me feel better. His snow-white clothes were slowly soaked with blood. It was a ghastly sight. Xiao Su didn't let him get up with his hands behind his back. Instead, he said indifferently, How long do you plan to feel guilty for? Ethereal raised his head in surprise. His master continued, It's an eventful time now. Why don't you stay in the palace? If something happens again, are you planning to atone for your crimes with your death? Ethereal was stunned. Don't lose the watermelon for the sesame. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the blood on his shoulder. What I taught you is not to repeat the mistakes of the past, and not to let you wallow in failure. Xiao Su turned around and left, leaving behind a sentence, merits offset demerits. There won't be a next time. Ethereal stared blankly at the black figure walking in the golden light. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh. His master had taken such a big detour to express his forgiveness. But his heart was so warm that his eyes reddened. His master was right. He couldn't be depressed anymore. There were still many things waiting for him to do. He couldn't lose the big picture for the small. Ethereal had just stood up when a charming figure walked out of the torture chamber. Who else could it be but Water Spirit? At this time, she was lazily leaning against the door frame, her arms crossed as she teased, 2 days ago, Hualing came to persuade you, but you wouldn't listen. Now that master is here, you changed your mind. Ethereal turned around, his dejected expression swept away. It was replaced by his usual elegance and gentleness. He smiled faintly, with Ethereal's fiery temper. Do you think I would listen even if he said it? Shui Ling nodded. Indeed, he's always able to say comforting words to anger people to death, but his intentions are also good. I know. But the punishment at the time wasn't enough. I don't want to forgive myself so easily. Ethereal replied, a trace of determination in his eyes. Water Spirit chuckled. You guys have different personalities, but your stubbornness is the same. Forget it, forget it. Since Master is here personally, then I don't need to waste my breath. You should go back quickly. Otherwise, the little princess Consort and the others will miss you. She was about to leave after saying this, but after taking 2 steps, she seemed to have thought of something. She raised her hand and threw something to him. She shrugged and said, although you are a doctor and have many good things, I am also entrusted by someone. Who is it? Turin. When she finished speaking, she had already disappeared, leaving only the flower petals spiraling on the ground. Ethereal looked at the wound medicine in his hand and couldn't help but smile. It was enough to have these brothers in his life. But, he looked at Water Spirit's departing figure, his eyes filled with pity. Water Spirit hadn't stepped into the torture chamber for many years, because this was the place where she and Fengling had first met. Now that she was back, she must be feeling terrible. Ethereal shook his head and sighed softly. He put away the medicine bottle and turned to leave. The dead were gone, but the living should still live well. Chapter 15-14. Today was a beautiful day with a gentle breeze. Father Chu had snatched his precious grandson from his son-in-law, taking him for himself. He was currently playing hide and seek with Hualing and the others. He lowered his head and rubbed his grandson who was biting his finger. He said with a laugh, Baby Kong Kong, grandfather will bring you high into the sky. Saying this, his feet tapped the ground and he flew up a tall tree in the imperial garden with the child. Kong Kong felt the scenery in front of him quickly change. The leaves and blue sky suddenly came closer and he immediately let go of his claws. He waved his hands and smiled happily. Hualing had just brought people here. Seeing this scene, his legs almost went soft from fright. He quickly flew under the tree and said to the old man, Old master, quickly come down. It's too high up, little master will be scared. At this time, his little master let out a zhi laugh, instantly slapping him in the face. Father Chu looked down with a look of disdain. Baby Kong Kong wouldn't be so cowardly. Hualing tried his best to persuade him, but Father Chu remained unmoved. He even wanted to stomp his feet. He had no other choice and could only fly up to the branch. He almost bowed, Old master, look at how high this place is. If there is an accident. However, before he could finish, Father Chu patted his shoulder with a look of disdain, white impermanence, move to the side. You're blocking Baby Kong Kong from seeing the scenery. Hualing was instantly petrified. How could it be like this? In the end, both sides took a step back. Hualing also remained on the branch. It was a good thing the tree trunk was thick enough and could withstand the weight of several people. Father Chu crossed his legs and held the child in his arms. Bathing in the sun and wind, it was a very beautiful scene. Of course, he automatically ignored Huoling's existence. Huoling knew that he was already a hindrance to the old man, so he didn't want to be a hindrance anymore. So, he dutifully stood guard, acting as an invisible person. In reality, Huoling was very surprised. According to Ethereal's meaning, the old man had already returned to his past self and should have forgotten martial arts. However, ever since the old man woke up, although he treated what happened on the battlefield as a dream, he did not forget his skills. Moreover, it was also at this time that he found out that the young general's martial arts from 16 years ago was actually this high. It was no wonder that even someone as powerful as Turin was defeated by her. Chu Machen's father didn't care about this bad guy who wanted to snatch his grandson away from him. He smiled and played with his grandson in his arms. Baby Kangkang, you have to remember that some people look serious on the surface, but they're actually evil on the inside. Huoling was innocently implicated. Old master, can you stop bad-mouthing this subordinate in front of little master? What if little master doesn't bring this subordinate to play in the future? Darling Kangkang, your father doesn't seem to like being the emperor. Grandpa sees that he's very busy. Why don't you stop being the emperor in the future? Let's kidnap someone to take over your father's mess, okay? The old man's words were simply shocking to death. Huoling looked at little master who was clapping his hands and making ee sounds. He really wanted to scratch the wall and cry to the sky. At this time, Xiao Su brought his two royal brothers through the imperial garden. When Huoling saw his savior come, he immediately jumped down from the tree to greet him. When he was about to report the old man's whereabouts, the person in the tree had already confessed. Son-in-law, Fan Zi, ho ho, I'm here. Chu Machen's father waved his hand and warmly greeted them. Who was the one with the stupid name Fan Zi? Xiao Yao really wanted to throw his fan. Wasn't it because he was holding a fan the first time they met that he was given this nickname? It wasn't as good as old third being called Ho Ho, but thinking about it, Yao Yao? Xiao Yao's lips twitched. Could he lean against the wall and vomit? He might as well have been called Fan Zi. Xiao Ho was filled with admiration for this general who had turned the tides on the battlefield. Hearing this, he raised his head and cupped his hands, Old Man Chu. Xiao Su raised his head and saw the old man and his son in his arms. He nodded and did not make a sound. He knew that as soon as he was born, his son would immediately want him to hold him. So the group of people left. Huoling rubbed his eyes. He thought that his master would have the old man leave. However, his master left like this, left. Chu Machen's father seemed to have seen through his thoughts as he said to his grandson in his arms, "Do you see that? This person is so bad." At this time, Xiao Yao turned around to look at Chu Machen jumping up and down in the tree. He raised his hand and nudged his little brother in confusion. Why isn't royal brother doing anything? Xiao Ho smiled. Maybe it's because he believes in old man Chu. Xiao Yao didn't really believe it. It seemed like old man Chu was like an old child. Letting a child take care of a child, wouldn't something happen? At this time, Xiao Su who had been silently walking spoke up, "Father-in-law knows what he's doing." Only then did Xiao Yao believe him. In any case, whatever eldest brother said was the truth. Xiao Ho laughed and shook his head. His second brother always believed his royal brother's words without a doubt. Even if he pointed at a stone and said it was gold, he would probably pick it up and bite it. When they turned the corner, Xiao Su turned to look at the person on the tree branch in the distance, his gaze softening. The little fellow had once told him that there could be two or more personalities in a person's body. Perhaps he couldn't trust other people, but the old man was the one he could trust. Because the old man had once released the version of himself that he didn't want to face the most in order to protect the people he cared about. So the old man was the least likely person to hurt Kong. Xiao Su looked away and continued walking. At this time, a white-haired figure squeezed onto the tree. "Hey, why are you here?" Chu Machen's father glared at him unhappily. The Emperor Emeritus stroked his beard. Only you are allowed to get close to my great-grandson, but I'm not allowed to. Huo Ling covered his face with his hands. Oh no, the Emperor Emeritus is here too. Chu Machen's father snorted, you occupied Kong darling for the whole morning yesterday, and now you have the nerve to say it. The Emperor Emeritus chuckled, then who was the one who occupied her yesterday afternoon? Chu Machen's father's eyes drifted, then he seemed to remember something and his eyes widened. Last night, you stayed in my son-in-law's palace for an hour. The Emperor Emeritus was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. If you hadn't occupied my place for an extra hour yesterday afternoon, would I have stayed there? The Emperor Emeritus was so angry that he used the word I. Chu Machen's father chuckled, I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. As he spoke, he flew to another tree with Kong and turned around to make a face at the Emperor Emeritus. Chu Huayuan, you black-hearted person. We agreed on a 50-50 split, but you cheated. You can't play like this. The Emperor Emeritus was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and chased after them. So the two of them fought in the imperial garden. No one knew who stepped on a flower or who knocked over a pot, but soon the petals fell one after another, filling the air with petals. The culprit who caused all this, Kong, was clapping at this time. Ya. Bao Bao's translation came online again, flower, fly, fly, fly. Huo Ling's head was full of petals and grass, and he was speechless and tearful. Little master, don't be led astray. Chapter 15:15. Chu Qingyan had been lying on the bed for almost a month. She couldn't get out of bed, couldn't take a bath, and felt like she was going to mold. After having a son, she had to get up in the middle of the night to feed him, and often couldn't sleep at night. Fortunately, there were people fighting to take care of her son during the day, so she had time to rest well. Today, she had just woken up when she met a pair of eyes as black as ink. At first glance, it looked like a deep pool, and it had a magical power that wanted to suck her in. She blinked and pulled herself back from this huge attraction. She laughed in her heart that she already had a son, but she still couldn't resist the temptation of a handsome man. Why are you back? She remembered that he was going to discuss a water project with Xiao Ho today. I've finished explaining everything. Xiao Su answered casually. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. You're not going to push things to them again, are you? Xiao Su said matter-of-factly, they have nothing to do all day. If I don't give them something to do, they'll think of slacking off again. Moreover, none of them have a family. I have a family, so naturally, it's them who can do more work. Chu Qingyan felt that the big ice cube's words made sense. Thinking of how her previous suggestion had trapped her two brothers-in-law, she suddenly felt a little apologetic. Xiao Su didn't come today to discuss his official business with the little fellow. He had more important things to do. However, after being interrupted by the little fellow, he actually couldn't remember the words he had prepared for a moment. Chu Qingyan stretched and sat up, but saw that he was frowning slightly. She thought that he was thinking about the matters of the imperial court, so she didn't disturb him. She prepared to take the basket at the side to check the little socks that she had sewn for Kong these 2 days. But just as she reached out, she didn't get anything, but a pair of strong hands held her. She was stunned, and met his serious and solemn gaze. She didn't know what he was up to, so she asked in amusement, "What's the matter?" That pair of eyes that had always been cold and emotionless were now slowly being covered by a gentle and warm color. That pair of eyes was even more moving than a love poem. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he said in a deep and affectionate voice, "Ian, I owe you a wedding that was extravagant and extravagant. Now, I plan to repay my debt. Are you willing to accept it?" Ah! A certain someone's brain crashed. "I want to take care of you, love you, and accompany you for the rest of my life. I also want to leave the rest of my life in your hands." Before this, there was no ceremony. Now, I want everyone to witness my firm determination. Are you willing to give me this opportunity? Who said that cold men didn't know how to speak sweet nothings? Sometimes, when they spoke honestly and seriously, they were more affectionate and loving than ever. Chu Qingyan was completely shocked by what he said. Her mouth was slightly agape, and she felt like her jaw was about to fall off. It was as if the scene in front of her was an illusion. Xiao Su raised his hand to close her jaw, and touched her face, his eyes full of tender love. They should have gotten married a year ago, but unfortunately, accidents kept happening, and even now, the child was born, and they still didn't have a clear identity as husband and wife. It was also because of this that the officials in the imperial court dared to ignore her existence, and again used the reason of the harem being without a master to squeeze her into the harem. That was why those hiding in the dark dared to speak ill of her. Before he met the little fellow, he had always lived as he pleased, and didn't care about the secular world. But now, he didn't want her to be wronged at all. He wanted to give her an identity that could stand by his side and enjoy all the glory with him. Chu Qingyan rubbed her eyes. The person in front of her didn't disappear because of this, and she realized that this wasn't a dream. She always thought that she and Big Ice Cube would naturally come to this place, and they were already used to this way of getting along. They had been together for 6 years, and if they were an ordinary couple, they would be an old couple. She had expected that they would have a wedding, but she didn't think that he would propose to her. When she was in the modern world, she had also looked forward to an earth-shattering and romantic proposal. Later, when she came to the ancient world, she no longer had such thoughts. After all, the ancient world was different, and they wouldn't understand these things. However, her Big Ice Cube's actions today moved her to the extreme. Because she felt his love and respect for her. Because she was already his, and the child had already been born, so he didn't need to do this. But he held her in the palm of his hand, and was willing to give her everything. She could feel his sincerity. "Are you willing to hold hands with me for the rest of our lives?" Xiao Su asked gently again. Chu Qingyan held his hand back and replied affectionately, "I'm willing to hold your hand and grow old with you." His heart that was hanging in the air finally settled down. He wasn't as calm as he appeared on the surface. Facing the woman he loved for the first time, it was inevitable that he would be nervous. Xiao Su smiled and pulled her into his arms. He announced, "The wedding will be in 3 days." Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. "Great, so you've already planned this. Proposing to me is just a formality, right?" Xiao Su held his forehead and smiled. "The wedding has been prepared since the day Kong was born. You can only be my woman for the rest of your life." She snorted. "You're so confident. Aren't you afraid that I'll reject you?" His eyes shone. "I won't give you the chance." She blushed. "So rushed?" "Wife, don't forget that we haven't done it for a few months." His voice disappeared by her ear, and her face turned even redder. This indecent man, thinking about this every day. Xiao Su was satisfied with his wit. He would kidnap his wife to the bridal chamber after her confinement. This way, no one would dare to disturb their time alone. "Wait." The person in his arms suddenly called out. He asked, "What's wrong?" "I won't agree to your proposal today." "You have to propose again." "Why?" "I imagined that I would be in beautiful clothes and accept your proposal in a glamorous manner, not in this unkempt and dirty appearance that I haven't taken care of for almost a month. So, I don't want to accept it, I don't want to accept it." Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, he lowered his head and covered her chattering mouth. She was only satisfied after he left her a sentence in her ear. "No matter when, you're in front of me, you're the most beautiful." Over at Prince Yi's estate, they were in a state of dead silence. Xiao Ho held the news that he had just received in his hand, and he was completely stunned. The letter said that after the princess fell off the cliff, she saw Xiao Lai's fire spirit roaming around. He had to go to the palace. As long as there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, he had to find her. Chapter 15-16. Xiao Ho didn't take a carriage. Instead, he rode a horse straight to the palace. Because he had Xiao Su's imperial edict, he could ride a horse after passing through the palace gate. They had never seen Prince Yi so anxious and uneasy. Seeing this, the palace guards immediately opened the gate for fear of delaying the important event. Thus, Xiao Ho arrived at the imperial study without any hindrance. Xiao Su received the news the moment Xiao Ho entered the palace and was waiting here. Xiao Su believed that his third brother wouldn't use the imperial edict unless it was an emergency. Although it was for his convenience in entering and leaving the palace, he had never seen him use it. As soon as Xiao Su put down the memorial in his hand, a man appeared in front of the table, gasping for breath. The eunuch next to him apologized to him with an embarrassed face. "I failed to stop Prince Yi. I'm sorry." Xiao Su raised his hand to dismiss the eunuch. He looked at the man in front of him with surprise. "What happened? It's not your style to be so panicked." Xiao Ho did not plan to beat around the bush and asked straightforwardly, "Imperial brother, this younger brother has something to ask you. Last year, when I planned the assassination on Phoenix Mountain, Hua Ling appeared nearby. Was it because you knew about my plan, or was it because of something else? Why do you suddenly ask?" Xiao Su had a guess. Xiao Ho met his gaze with sharp eyes. "Imperial brother, I want to know if Xijing is still alive." It was rare to see him take off his warm exterior and reveal such a sharp side. Xiao Su admired him. It seemed that Pang Xijing's matter was his reverse scale. "I can't answer you, but I can take you to see someone." As soon as Xiao Su finished speaking, Xiao Ho's eyes lit up. It was different from the usual light with a smile. It was like a light that had been extinguished was lit again. The former was distant and unapproachable, the latter was joyful and hopeful. "Okay." Seeing this, Xiao Su sighed in his heart and led him to Yansu Palace. Chu Qingyan had already received the news. She sat in front of the bed and waited for the two to come. She only knew that Xiao Ho had something to ask her, but he didn't have time to tell her what it was. But when Xiao Ho entered the inner hall and saw the person on the bed, Chu Qingyan clearly saw the light in his eyes dim. "Third brother, what's the matter?" Chu Qingyan was confused. Imperial brother brought him to see imperial sister-in-law, not her. This difference made him feel dejected all of a sudden. Xiao Ho cheered up and pursed his lips. "Imperial sister-in-law, can you tell me if Xijing is still alive?" Yes, he had heard little rascal say that he wanted imperial sister-in-law to help him escape. At that time, he was too confident that she couldn't escape from him, so he didn't take it to heart. But when he thought of the fire spirit appearing at the bottom of the cliff and imperial brother's attitude just now, hope rekindled in his eyes. He stared at the person in front of him. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She didn't expect Xiao Ho to come to her because of Xijing. She also didn't expect that after so long, he would be able to find out that it was her. She had to admit that he was persistent and infatuated with her. "But, I remember that you found Xijing's body at the bottom of the cliff. Didn't you already confirm it?" Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Xiao Ho was stunned. A stubborn and probing look appeared in his eyes. "Imperial sister-in-law, that body isn't Xijing's, is it?" Seeing that he was holding on, the hands hidden in his sleeves trembled slightly. If they confirmed that Xijing was dead, she believed that this man would be ruined. He would never have the courage to live again. Chu Qingyan smiled. "Third brother, I'm very happy that Xijing's feelings for you are reciprocated." She called Jasper forward. Jasper walked in front of Xiao Ho and handed him a letter. "Third brother, take a look. Maybe you'll have an answer after you read it." If this had happened before yesterday, she wouldn't have been able to confirm whether Xijing was alive or... She would probably have said that she didn't know. But today, she received a letter from Yen Luo. The letter was plain and unremarkable. The handwriting on the cover was very messy, as if it had been written in a hurry. But in Xiao Ho's eyes, the letter seemed to carry an extremely heavy weight. He took the letter, opened the seal, and took out the paper. There was only one line on it. "Xijing has safely passed the critical period. Don't miss her." It was just a few words, but Xiao Ho stared at them for a long time. He stared at them so long that the heat in his chest spread to his eyes. It was as if a hole had been torn open in the cage that imprisoned him, and sunlight poured in. He felt warmth and joy that he hadn't felt in a long time. It was a mixture of emotions, and he couldn't tell whether he was happy or sad. Chu Qingyan saw him like this and felt more confident. I promised Zhijing that I would send her out of the capital. But on the day of her departure, she found out that you were attacked, so she went to the mountain to look for you. In the end, she fell off the cliff. You know what happened during this period. When Huling found out that she had fallen off the cliff, he immediately mobilized people nearby to search for her. But by the time they found her, her life was hanging by a thread. You can say that she was on her last breath. Do you remember Yen Luo? She was the one who saved Zhijing's life. If she had stayed in the capital, Zhijing would have died. Hearing this, Xiaohou couldn't help but clench his fists. His face turned pale. Later, Yen Luo thought of her father, Divine Dr. Luo. Holding on to a glimmer of hope, she took Zhijing out of the city in the middle of the night. Previously, we set up Zhijing's departure to fake an accident so that people would think that she had died in an accident. We also found the fake corpse, but no one expected such an accident to happen. So you used the fake corpse to replace her at the bottom of the cliff? Xiaohou wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. His emotions were extremely complicated. That's right. Because the situation was urgent, we didn't know about your relationship. In addition, I promised Zhijing that I wouldn't let her get involved in the political disputes between the two countries. So everything was logical. Chu Qingyan felt a little apologetic. But in the situation at that time, she had to do this. If Zhijing was awake, she would have done the same. The reason why I didn't tell you was very simple. At that time, Zhijing was seriously injured. You weren't there at that time. Otherwise, you would have been heartbroken. Even the divine doctor can't guarantee that he can snatch her away from Hades' Lord. It would be good if she could be saved, but if she couldn't. So it was useless to tell you. I was afraid that I would give you hope. If that hope was destroyed, it would only be a second, heavier blow to you. Xiaohou understood what she meant. After a year, little rascal was finally out of danger. It was easy to imagine how serious her injuries were. As long as she's alive, it's fine. As long as she's alive, it's worth it no matter how much torture I suffer. I'll take it as atonement. All of this was his own fault. If he hadn't set up a trap, if he hadn't insisted on revenge, if he hadn't unintentionally involved her, none of this would have happened. She wouldn't have suffered so much. Chapter 15-17. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at Xiaohou's heartfelt expression and sighed with emotion. Xiaohou raised his head and looked at her with reddened eyes. Sister-in-law, can you tell me where she is now? Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan revealed a troubled expression. I don't know either. Zhijing's injuries were too severe, and Yen Luo sent her to a place that was recorded in the medical books, where ordinary people would not be able to find her. Every time, we could only wait for news from them. Xiaohou was stunned, then smiled bitterly. But he really missed her. Third brother, as long as Zhijing recovers, she'll come back. Chu Qingyan comforted him. Thank you, sister-in-law. Xiaohou smiled bitterly. He already knew what he wanted to know. He didn't want to disturb sister-in-law's rest, so he solemnly bowed to her and left the palace. Little rascal was still alive. She was living well somewhere in this world. He felt relieved, and the prison in his heart was opened. But he was still panicked and afraid. He was afraid that she would seek freedom and never come back. He was afraid that she would disappear from his life. Xiaohou felt that he had never been so afraid in his life. There were 8 hardships in life: birth, old age, illness, and death, separation, longing, and being unable to let go. He seemed to have tasted each of these 8 hardships. At this moment, he stood outside the palace. The road in front of him was clear, but he didn't know where to go. No, he clenched his hands, and a look of determination appeared in his eyes. "Little rascal, I'll wait for you here. I'll wait for you to come back. If you don't come back, I'll go find you. I won't give up, no matter where you go." After thinking it through, his floating feet finally landed on solid ground. He led the horse to his second brother's mansion. At this moment, he wanted to drink to his heart's content. Meanwhile, in a certain mystic realm, Yen Luo, who had just finished milking the baby and was about to bring it over, suddenly slapped her head. "Oh, my memory is so bad. I think I haven't told Qing Yan about Jijing's pregnancy. It's all because I was in such a hurry this morning. Forget it, I'll tell you next time. I'm still going to deliver food to the baby." If Xiao Ho knew that his little rascal was not only alive, but also had a 3-month-old child, his life would be complete. Unfortunately, there were too many coincidences in this world. But to Xiao Ho, knowing that his lover was still alive was already the best thing that could happen to him. In the past few days, the palace had been very lively, not only because of the little prince's 1-month birthday, but also because of the upcoming wedding of the emperor and empress. No, to be more precise, it was the emperor's wedding and the empress coronation ceremony. Because there were only 2 masters in the palace maids and eunuchs did not have to do much on normal days. Therefore, at such a critical moment, there was enough manpower. On the other side, more than a dozen palace maids were holding the newly sewn phoenix wedding dress as they majestically walked past. On the other side, more than a dozen eunuchs walked past with jewelry boxes in their hands. The imperial palace, which was usually cold and cheerless, was bustling with activity these days. Everywhere, one could see the silhouettes of people busy with the wedding. Meanwhile, the beloved little prince was being held in Father Chu's arms, hiding from the world. Father Chu felt that the sun was shining brightly and the flowers were blooming just right. If there were no obstructions at the side, it would be even more pleasing to the eye. "You old man, why do you keep following me?" Father Chu yelled at the person behind him in dissatisfaction. The Emperor Emeritus rolled his eyes. "You scoundrel, this path doesn't belong to your family. Why are you poking your nose into it?" Father Chu scared. "This is my son-in-law's." The Emperor Emeritus humphed. "This is my grandson's." The palace maids serving at the side were so frightened that they trembled. In this world, Father Chu was probably the only person who dared to be so disrespectful to the Emperor Emeritus. However, the Emperor Emeritus did not seem to care about his disrespect at all. The more Father Chu bickered with him, the more he liked to hang around in front of him. Only when Father Chu was so angry that he was speechless would he stomp his feet and vent his temper. "If it weren't for the fact that you saved us back then, your head would have been removed long ago." Although he said that, after the Emperor Emeritus's anger subsided, he still liked to play with Father Chu. It seemed that in this world, there was no one who dared to disregard his status and be sincere friends with him. At this moment, the 2 of them were chattering back and forth. As they walked, they almost bumped into someone. Father Chu turned his head. Wasn't this the charlatan that Kai Kai had mentioned? Thus, Father Chu didn't care about anything else and stuffed his grandson into his arms, then pulled the Emperor Emeritus to the side. "Let's have a fight." The Emperor Emeritus rolled up his sleeves. "Come, who's afraid of who?" Thus, the 2 of them began to fight on the path, completely ignoring the palace maid's advice. However, before Su Jian could finish his "Amitba," a soft little child appeared in his arms and smiled at him. For the first time in his life, the calm and composed divine monk Su Jian was stunned. "Yeah, it was Kong who looked at him and danced with laughter that pulled him back to reality." He hurriedly raised his hands to hold down the child's short arms, afraid that he would fall over if he struggled. However, the little child seemed to understand his thoughts and stopped moving. Instead, he looked straight at him and smiled. His large eyes were as bright as the moon, and his voice was like a clear spring. His skin was fair, his eyes were big, and his lips were pouty. Even as an outsider, Su Jian couldn't help but like him. A few palace maids were standing nearby, but because of their status, they didn't dare to ask him for the little prince. Su Jian also knew that this was the best time to return the child to them, but for some reason, after seeing this child and knowing that he was his, he couldn't bear to part with him. From afar, Su Jian glanced at the two people who were happily fighting. He walked to a stone table and sat down. He held the little child in his arms and waited quietly. Yaya, the little child continued to speak in a baby language that only he could understand. "And Kong, is it safe and sound?" Su Jian murmured. Then, he smiled. You will have a peaceful and happy life. Your future will be limitless, and you will become a dragon among men." This sentence sounded like a normal blessing, but the young novice monk beside Su Jian was shocked. He had never heard his master speak so highly of anyone. Many people had spent a lot of money to beg his master for a word of praise, but his master had ignored them all. Moreover, his master had never been so close to a child before. The novice monk had been wondering why his master was suddenly so close to the child. Now that he heard this, he couldn't help but guess that Su Jian was indeed the son of an emperor. This wasn't an ordinary blessing, but a prophecy. To be able to receive such a high prophecy, this child's future was truly limitless. The novice monk was a little envious, but he also wished him well. The future of the son of an emperor also represented the future of the country. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. "Su Jian, I heard from your master that you had a calamity. Have you resolved it?" Chapter 15:18. These words came so suddenly that Su Jian was subconsciously stunned. The person who came asked in a low voice, and the person beside him was standing far away, so only the two of them could hear. Because he had lowered his head to tease on Kong, the person who came did not see his expression. He paused for a moment, then recovered his usual calmness. He slowly raised his head and looked at the retired emperor, who had a puzzled expression. "It's already settled." Hearing this, the retired emperor saw that his expression was normal and was relieved. "I remember that your master was still very concerned about this matter. It's good that it's settled now." Su Jian smiled faintly. The retired emperor sat down on the stone chair beside him and stroked his white beard. He seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked, "That's right, it's all thanks to you coming down the mountain this time. Otherwise, who knows how much that little girl would have suffered. I just don't know why you suddenly came out of the mountain." Su Jian still looked calm and indifferent. This humble monk and Qin Yan are fated. She's a kind girl. The retired emperor did not seem surprised at this answer at all. Instead, he looked at him deeply. At this moment, Ankang grabbed his finger and rubbed it against his face, smiling happily. Su Jian bent his finger and gently tapped his cheek, his expression as gentle as water. Buddhists were all nothingness. They had feelings and seemed to be emotionless. They had seen through life and death and were neither sad nor happy. However, at this moment, the retired emperor seemed to see a monk who had no desires and stepped into the secular world from the great sage realm. His body was stained with joy and dust. Perhaps a bystander saw it clearly. His turbid eyes, which had seen the vicissitudes of life, revealed a touch of pity. Finally, the retired emperor looked away and landed his gaze on his great-grandson. His eyes were full of love. "Little Ankang, you have to thank the person who hugged you. It's all thanks to him that you and your mother can live well." This was because no one knew that if Su Jian's appearance had not changed the course of events, they would not have been so successful. This was also the reason why he suddenly came back. He wanted to see what he could do to help. "Old man, you're actually here. Didn't we agree to fight? How can you run away at the last minute?" A vigorous voice cut in. The corner of the retired emperor's mouth twitched. He grabbed the lapel of the person in front of him and lifted him over. He said resentfully, "Chu Huayuan, don't you know how to respect the old and cherish the young? I'm already so old, can't you stop making me angry?" Chu Machen's father carefully pried his hand away and retreated to Su Jian's side. He stuck his head out and said, you're older than me. You should take care of your younger self. The retired emperor suddenly had an impulse to beat someone up. At this moment, Mr. Chu saw that Su Jian was so angry that he was glaring at him. He found it very amusing. He took Kong from Su Jian's arms and said proudly, "You've lost. I'm going to take Kong away." After saying that, Chu Machen's father turned around and flew away using his qinggong. He flew away, the retired emperor slapped his forehead and felt helpless. This person was really regressing as he lived. Su Jian watched the departing figure from the side. He pinched his fingers together and finally revealed a look of understanding. Old benefactor Chu is truly childlike and interesting. Hearing this, the retired emperor turned to look at him. Then will his life be peaceful and smooth? He will. All the difficulties have passed. Su Jian smiled. Only then did the retired emperor relax. He then asked, "Then how long do you plan to stay here?" Su Jian looked up at the lush green leaves in the distance, his eyes rippling. When it's time to leave. When all her tribulations had passed and all the obstacles had been crossed. The leaves rustled and the breeze was light. His green monk robe brushed against the flowers and grass beside the stone steps as he gradually disappeared into the distance. The smile on the retired emperor's face disappeared. He looked at Su Jian's back and sighed faintly. How could he not know what his tribulations were? It was just that others could not help him resolve them. The word love was neither light nor heavy. However, heroes could not escape from it. Even those who had seen through the mundane world could not escape from it. Forget it, forget it. Young people can solve their own problems. I'd better go tease my little great-grandson. The retired emperor waved his sleeves and walked in the direction that Chu Machen's father had left. After a day, Chu Qingyan received the surprise that her family's big ice cube had prepared for her. Bai Yutang, snowflake cake, and glutinous rice ball had returned to the snow mountains to spend the winter with the Wolf King and Wolf Queen. When they saw their master, they happily pounced on her. Little C, who had returned from organizing the Eagle Army, raised its neck in disdain. These few did not have the slightest bit of the Snow Mountain King's reserve and boldness. They were not like it, so noble and solemn. However, when its master rubbed this one's head, then that one's head, she did not notice it at all. Little C flapped its wings and immediately flew over. Master, you can't be biased. They completely lost their cold and aloof appearance from before. When Hualing, who had come out of the city gates to pick up these mountain kings, saw this scene, he really wanted to gouge out his own eyes. They had clearly been all kinds of unapproachable and unsmiling mountain kings on the way here. How did they turn into cute kittens in front of the little princess consort? Did he open it the wrong way, or did he open it the wrong way? Chu Qingyan finally calmed down these enthusiastic beasts with great difficulty before raising her head to ask Hualing, "Why did you bring them back?" She remembered that it was Big Ice Cube who had sent these beasts away. These beasts had left unwillingly. Hualing said with a smile, "Master said, you haven't seen Bai Yutang and the others for a long time, so you must be missing them. So he had people pick them up." Chu Qingyan nodded. She did not think that Big Ice Cube would be so attentive. She knew the reason why he had sent Bai Yutang and the others away. At that time, tens of thousands of wild beasts had followed them to the capital. After everything was over, if they were allowed to stay, it would affect the people's livelihood. However, she was pregnant and it was not suitable for her to personally lead them back. So, Big Ice Cube had given this heavy responsibility to the four of them. However, it just happened to be winter and they were delayed after winter. When Xiao Su returned, it was already late in the day. He walked to the entrance of the hall and Hualing came up to greet him. "They're all here?" Xiao Su asked. "Yes, Little Hai and the others are currently in the hall with the little princess consort. Little Master is also here." Hualing replied truthfully. Xiao Su nodded. Actually, he did not like people or things to disturb him and the little fella's two-person world. However, he was too busy and the little fella was very concerned about these beasts, so he could only have them come back to accompany the little fella as soon as possible. However, when Xiao Su walked in, his little fella was hugging his son and gently coaxing him. The scene was very beautiful. It was a pity that the scene was ruined when a row of beasts squatting around the little fella turned their heads to look at him. Their green eyes were like they were looking at a love rival. Bai Yutong, someone is coming to steal little master from us. Snowflake cake, that's right. Glutinous rice ball, little master is ours. Little Hai, if you want to steal little master, you have to pass through this king first. Xiao Su's eyes twitched. It seemed like he had found some trouble for himself. Chapter 1519. Time flowed by like water. Perhaps it could be said that happy days always flew by quickly. Soon, it was time for the wedding of the new emperor and empress. The solemn and serene palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, filling the air with jubilation. Before the sun had even risen, Chu Qingyan was dragged out of bed. She groggily allowed everyone to dress her up. Only when the heavy phoenix coronet was placed on her head did she truly wake up. At this time, the dressing was nearing the end. She raised her eyes to look at herself in the mirror and was stunned by her own beauty. She didn't dare to imagine that the woman smiling brightly in the mirror was herself. After Xining inserted the last phoenix hairpin, Hua Xiu squeezed through the crowd and walked in front of Chu Qingyan. She cupped her face with both hands and acted like a love-struck fool. Everyone says that the bride is the most beautiful, but I've seen so many brides, and none of them can compare to you. Qingyan, you're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen in my life. Xining nodded heavily and said proudly, no one can compare to my master. Chu Qingyan covered her mouth and smiled. You don't have to flatter me. Xiu Xian, when you get married, you'll definitely be the most beautiful bride. Hua Xiu chuckled and put her hands on her shoulders. She bent down and looked at the two people's faces in the mirror. She sighed with emotion. To be honest, I can't bear to marry you off. Water Spirit, who was tidying up the bride's clothes, stood up and smiled enchantingly. Young Master Hua, don't forget to look at the people around you. Hua Xiu straightened up and snorted. I know. You have so many people, I don't dare to kidnap the bride. These people in the hall were Xiao Su's most powerful subordinates. If she tried to snatch someone from them, she would definitely die if she fought with the king of hell. Pei, it's such a good day, why are you thinking about death? Hua Xiu secretly scolded herself and covered her friend's head with the red veil, but only her face was exposed. She would put it down when the time was right. After retracting her hand, she looked at the jade-like person in front of her and couldn't help but smile. This wedding dress was made by over 100 of the most famous tailors and embroiderers in the country. This phoenix coronet was strung with pearls the size of pearly white teeth. They were the most precious pearls in the Eastern Sea. Every single piece of jewelry on her body was priceless, or even priceless treasures that couldn't be found on the market. Xiao Su seemed to want to take out all the most luxurious and beautiful things in the world to dress up his unique and beautiful bride. From this, it could be seen how deep his affection for his good friend was. Hua Xiuli was envious and touched. That's strange. The one who should be crying is my mother. Why are your eyes red? Is it because you can't bear to part with me? Chu Qingyan saw that her eyes were red. She was moved, but she couldn't help teasing her. That's right. I have a feeling of having a little sister growing up. You have to be happy. Otherwise, even if I'm a commoner, I will seek justice for you. Hua Xiuli rubbed her eyes and pretended to be fierce. Water Spirit on the side followed up, young Master Hua, boss can rest assured. My family's master loves the little princess to the bone. You guys only know how to speak good words for your master. Hua Xiuli snorted. Chu Qingyan was amused. She held her good friend's hand and patted the back of her hand, don't worry, he's really good to me. Moreover, I'm not easy to bully, right? Moreover, you're now the richest person in Jiangnan. You might even be in the top 3 in the country. With your identity, you're not just a commoner. So, with your support, I have more confidence. Hua Xiaoli obviously knew that no one in this world cared more about her good friend than Xiao Su. However, she was a bit reluctant to part with her, so she said these words. However, Xiao Su was the emperor and her good friend's wealth was not on the surface. She was afraid that outsiders would bully her good friend who didn't have any relatives to support her, so she emphasized her position. But to be honest, everything she had now was given to her by her good friend. Her good friend's hidden wealth was not any worse than hers. Moreover, her good friend was so smart. She could only bully others and not be bullied. So thinking like this, she was relieved. Good, good, good. My Hua family will be your second home. Chu Qingyan's eyes were slightly red. They had already cut ties with the Chu family. In the eyes of outsiders, she only had her parents, weak and easy to bully. It was a pity that she already had great power. If anyone dared to move against them, then she wouldn't be polite. However, her good friend's words still moved her heart. Okay. At this moment, Chu Qingyan's mother walked over with little Kong in her arms. Chu Qingyan lowered her head and kissed his forehead. She said with a smile, "Baby, father and mother are getting married." Kong clapped his hands and called out, "Ya ya." The baby's translation came online, "Kiss kiss kiss kiss." Chu Qingyan's mother's eyes were filled with tears. "Kai Kai, mother sees you getting married. Thinking about how time flies, you used to be around in Kang's age. Now you're an adult and a mother. Mother is old." Chu Qingyan let go of her son's hand and reached out to hug her mother. Her voice was slightly hoarse. "Mother isn't old. Mother is still very young. I haven't grown up yet. I'm still young." Chu Qingyan's mother didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her coquettish words. "What nonsense are you saying? You're about to get married." All right, mother won't say any more. It's almost time. You should leave the palace. Don't miss the auspicious hour." As Chu Qingyan was getting married directly from the palace, the Ministry of Rites discussed and let the bridal sedan and carriage circle around the city before entering the palace to perform the ceremony. This would also allow the people to admire the future empress's elegance. Thus, they had to set off now. At the same time, in an inconspicuous residence in the capital, Consort Yu and Dongting Fan were sitting in the living room and talking. "Have you arranged for everyone to leave?" Consort Yu asked with a malicious look in her eyes. Dongting Fan watched as his former charming junior sister turned into a vicious woman who lived only for revenge. He felt pity and desolation in his heart, but he still nodded. "In an hour, the procession will pass by the East Gate. That's the busiest place. Our men will disguise themselves as commoners and blend into the crowd. When the time comes, even if we can't kill Chu Qingyan and Chu Qingyan, we might be able to disrupt this wedding." Consort Yu smiled coldly. Very good, very good. What 10 miles of wedding? What grand wedding? She was going to turn them into a joke. However, at this moment, a gust of wind blew open the door. Green leaves and petals floated in. The two of them narrowed their eyes from the gust of wind. "Who's there? Don't pretend to be mysterious." Dongting Fan obviously noticed that there were people. As he spoke, his hand was already on the weapon at his waist. "It's been a long time since we last met. How have you two been?" As soon as he finished speaking, a devilishly handsome purple figure leaned against the door frame and spoke leisurely. When Consort Yu saw the person in front of her, her eyes widened. "It's you. You didn't die. You didn't die, so how would this young master dare to die?" The casual voice suddenly turned cold and dangerous. Chapter 1520. It was time. Xiao Su appeared in the Yen Su Palace. He had always been dressed in black. Even when he was wearing a yellow robe on the day of his coronation, he still wore a black imperial robe afterwards. This was the first time that everyone saw him wearing a scarlet robe. His black hair was tied up high, and a golden jade crown was fastened on a jade belt. It shone brightly, making him look luxurious. The collar and cuffs were embroidered with the rarest golden silk. The back was embroidered with peony twining branches. The hem of the robe was also embroidered with the same color, echoing the bride's robe. The silver mask covered his face, revealing his clear black eyes. Because today was a good day, His Majesty was no longer there. There was a bit of joy, a bit of eagerness, and a bit of satisfaction. Just by standing there, he was already a rare scenery in the world of mortals, making people unable to take their eyes off him. People couldn't help but want to take off that layer of mask, as if they wanted to push aside the clouds to see what kind of picture it was. In just a moment, everyone seemed to see thousands of rivers and mountains, among the blue sky and white clouds. However, in the blink of an eye, he had already passed through the crowd and walked in front of the bride. When Xiao Su appeared, Xining and the others hurriedly took off the veil, so he only saw his beloved woman standing there in a fiery red wedding dress. Although he couldn't see her face, it was already a beautiful picture. She stood there quietly with the phoenix coronet and the red veil covering her beautiful face, but he could imagine how beautiful her face was under the veil, and how clear and moving her eyes were. She was like the moon, and her white wrist was like frost and snow. Unknowingly, he was already standing in front of her, restraining his hand from lifting her veil. Chu Qingyan couldn't see in front of her, but when he walked over, she felt him approaching. When feelings were strong to a certain extent, even if they couldn't see each other, they could feel each other as long as they appeared. His boots appeared in her field of vision, which she had sewn with her own hands. Just as she was still wondering if it fit his feet, she heard a voice that sounded close yet far. "Ian, I'm here to pick you up." She was startled. It was as if you had traveled through mountains and rivers, and after 1,000 hardships, you finally reached the other side of the mountain, and there was everything you wished for. "I've been waiting for you." Xiao Su couldn't help but smile as a warm current spread in his heart. It was as if you were shouting at the other side of the mountain, and the other side happened to respond. "I'm sorry for taking so long to pick you up. As long as you come, I'll wait for you no matter how long it takes." Xiao Su held her hand, intertwined their fingers, and led her out. Mrs. Chu's eyes reddened as she looked at the beautiful couple. She could finally rest assured that her daughter had met the right man. After exiting the hall, Xiao Su suddenly squatted in front of her. Chu Qingyan obediently wrapped her arms around his neck. She remembered that she used to love jumping on his back and letting him carry her around the courtyard. Now, when she got close to his back again, she still felt like she was being doted on. The maid on the side was shocked when she saw this. "Your Majesty, this is not proper etiquette." Huo Ling and Water Spirit looked at each other. What was etiquette? Their master didn't care about it at all. On this kind of good day, Xiao Su was too lazy to waste words with them. He looked at the giant creatures not far away, and then continued forward with his person on his back. The maid wanted to say something, but several snow-white cute creatures suddenly appeared in front of her. They were baring their fangs at her, as if they were saying, "Stupid human, you talk too much." The maid had never seen a snow wolf before. She opened her mouth and fainted from fright. Glutinous rice ball blinked innocently. It had only let out a yawn and hadn't made a move yet, so why did this person faint? Humans really were weak. At this time, its older brothers were calling for it. It turned its head and immediately followed the group. It was its master's royal pet, so how could it be missing from the wedding procession? Although Chu Qingyan couldn't see, her ears were still working. She couldn't help poking his back. "If you let Little Hai and the others out, won't it scare the flowers and plants? Why don't I come down? Relax, I know what I'm doing. You just need to be my bride today." Xiao Su pinched her waist and then continued forward with steady steps. This was his wife. From 6 years ago until now, even in the future, he was willing to pamper her like a child. No one could affect him or stop him. Even if he wasn't the emperor, he could still pamper her like no other. So with the Snow Wolf Eagle King opening the way, everything went smoothly. Whenever there was a ceremonial official that wanted to say a few words, they would be so scared by these powerful mountain kings that they wouldn't dare say a word. The aloof emperor was like a normal man, carefully carrying his bride on his back, looking ordinary and simple. It was hard to imagine that this was the wedding of an emperor and empress. Hua Xiaoli followed behind. When she saw this, she suddenly had an epiphany. Xiao Su was establishing his wife's prestige. His attitude showed that in his heart, Chu Qingyan was very important. Not only was she the empress of a country, she was also his wife and the one he doted on the most. If anyone wanted to make trouble for her, they would have to go through him first. With the protection of the Wolf-Eagle King, if anyone wanted to make trouble, they would have to weigh their own weight. Unknowingly, Chu Qingyan's position was already unshakable. Originally, she was worried that after Xiao Su became the emperor, he would change. After all men had bad habits. But now, it seemed that she worried too much. So the group of people majestically walked towards the palace gate. How is this possible? How can your martial arts be above mine? A shocked voice pierced through, followed by a painful groan. That's because you stayed in the same place while I kept breaking through. Why? Shouldn't you be on our side? Don't tell me you want to help that slut Chu Qingyan. A shrill female voice hatefully questioned. This young master is used to doing things as he pleases. What can you do about it? The bewitching voice slowly spoke with a tone that made people gnash their teeth in hatred. The wind stopped, as if the wind and lightning just now were just an illusion. No one knew what kind of bloody storm that unremarkable little residence had experienced. When Higashio Motetsu walked out, his purple robes were gorgeous and spotless. He lightly flicked his sleeves, sweeping away the petals on them. His cold gaze suddenly recovered its cynical smile. He raised a hand to his forehead, his expression relaxed. Today's weather is really good. Master. Xuanqi Zimo walked out from the shadows. His face, which used to be childish, was now resolute, as if he had matured a lot. Let's go to the east gate. The little girl was about to get married. No matter what, he had to escort her. Yes. When the wind blew, they had already disappeared, leaving behind a field of bright-colored petals and spiraling leaves. Chapter 1521. Since ancient times, when an emperor and empress got married, there would be a huge commotion and the entire country would celebrate. But it was rare to see a civil wedding like this. Because there had never been an empress who got married from the palace, and there had never been an emperor who got married from the palace. If these two things were separated, it wouldn't be shocking. But when these two things were put together, no one wouldn't be surprised. What kind of honor was that? What kind of scene was that? This kind of wedding was indirectly announcing to the world how loving the emperor and empress were, and how much the new empress was favored. Moreover, this wedding was so close to the people, so close to the people. This was the first time the people saw the new emperor go out, sitting on a white horse so handsome, and behind him was the new empress's flower carriage. To be able to admire the emperor and empress's beauty, they would have no regrets in life. 10 miles of red dowry, one carriage after another of the dowry. That side had left the city, but they hadn't seen the end yet. There were peach branches on both sides of the road, and the lush peach trees were full of buds, blooming with bright pink flowers. It was clearly past the season of peach blossoms, but they could still see such a wonderful scene, which made the people who came out to watch this grand wedding very surprised. You don't know, right? I heard that His Majesty ordered people to pluck the peach branches that had just formed buds 2 months ago, and then put them in the ice cellar to freeze them. Now, he took them out, just to complete the sentence of, I'll give you 10 miles of peach blossoms. No wonder I felt that the peach blossoms were emitting an icy aura, chasing away a lot of the heat. His Majesty is indeed worthy of being able to think of this kind of method. The new emperor is so considerate and devoted to his wife, it seems like it's the good fortune of us citizens. If he could be so attentive to a small family, there was no need to talk about how he treated the country. The new emperor's character was even more confirmed at this moment. Chu Qingyan sat in the flower carriage and was attracted by the sounds of exclamations and envy. "What's going on?" she asked in confusion. Xining and Jasper sat on both sides of the shaft. Hearing her words, Xining immediately said, "Master, His Majesty has planted peach branches all the way for you. Those peach blossoms are so beautiful, as if it's spring again. His Majesty treats you so well." Xining had become a lot more mature in the past few years and had seen a lot of the world. At this time, it was obvious how grand the scene was for her to sigh like this. Chu Qingyan was a little curious and couldn't help but want to lift the veil. She rolled her eyes and ordered, "Put down the veil." Jasper Xining immediately did as she was told. As soon as the gauze curtain was put down, the people outside couldn't see inside, but the people inside could see everything outside. Therefore, when Chu Qingyan lifted the red veil, his eyes were filled with pink and tender. The peach blossoms on the side of the road were burning with red, bright and beautiful. Who wouldn't look over? She stared blankly at the clusters of deep red and light red that streaked across her eyes. Her heart seemed to swell, and it was about to swell in her chest. That was just a joke. He actually remembered it until now and even prepared this peach blossom banquet for her. Her bright and beautiful eyes gradually became moist. Even if the two had been together for so long, already had a child, and knew about each other's feelings, she still couldn't help but feel her heart palpitate. Who said that love would become familial after a long time, and the passion of the beginning would return to calmness? That was just an excuse because the love wasn't deep enough. She had been with the big ice cube for so many years, but she never felt that the two of them had become a pool of calm water without any waves. Every word he said was still moving. Every action he made still warmed her heart. The joy of seeing at first sight and not getting tired of it for a long time, was the true love of a lifetime. She raised her head and her gaze fell on the red figure in front of her. A smile slowly filled her eyes. The peach blossoms are bright and beautiful. The son of Yugui is suitable for his wife. The peach blossoms are bright and beautiful. The son of Yugui is suitable for his wife. Run away without a trace, Yizhinjin. The son of Yugui is suitable for his wife. She finally understood the mood of the bride in the Book of Songs. It turned out that after experiencing the situation, the heart was so happy. The thought of wanting to be with this person for a lifetime surged strongly in her heart. On the east gate of the city, a figure stood there. His purple robes fluttered, luxurious and charming. He looked into the distance and saw the guards of honor majestically coming from afar. Firecrackers sounded, gongs and drums resounded, and petals danced in the air. The guards in front were the most elite troops of Shaolai cavalry. On both sides of the road, there was a guard every 5 steps and a team every 10 steps. The degree of meticulousness was simply amazing. It could be seen that Xiao Su didn't allow any mistakes. Higashio Motetsu laughed lowly. It seemed that this time, he didn't need to appear. His father and Consort Yu's plan wouldn't succeed. He just smiled and smiled. The shallow desire in his phoenix eyes gradually melted. Because the flower carriage had already entered his field of vision. The red gauze curtain was indistinct. He couldn't see the figure inside, but with just a glance, he could imagine how happy the person sitting inside was at this time. Little girl, to be able to see your happiness with my own eyes is really very good. I didn't rush all the way in vain. That day, I heard your cries. But I couldn't respond, and I couldn't respond. If I can't protect you, then I won't become your burden. I didn't expect that heaven would take pity on me and not take my life. Perhaps it's just as you said, good people don't live long, scourges live for 1,000 years. But this is also good, at least I can send you off. He picked up the bamboo flute hanging at his waist, put it to his lips, and gently blew it. The crisp sound of the flute with lingering blessings fell into the wind and jumped into the lively sound of gongs, drums, and fireworks. The first time we met, I held you hostage in the King of England's mansion. When we met again, you still fell into my hands. Time and time again, we stood on opposite sides each time, so much so that we missed each other again and again. However, your cunning, quick-wittedness, and bright kindness left ripples in the lake of my heart, but I didn't realize it at all. When I understood the feelings in my heart, your heart already belonged to someone else. I wanted to stay by your side as a friend, but I didn't want to sink deeper and deeper. When you only had Xiao Su's figure in your eyes, I knew that no matter what, I could no longer stand by your side calmly. You were the sun and the moon in the sky, you used the warm light to illuminate the darkness in my heart, you used the gentle shadow to bring me the magnificent scenery. It was you who taught me to love and be loved. You are the warmth that I can't forget in my life. Maybe we are not fated in this life, but it doesn't hinder my feelings for you. You once said that liking someone is your own matter, it has nothing to do with others, it has nothing to do with spring flowers and autumn moon. Then let me alone, in the wind, flowers, snow, and moon, watch the flowers bloom and fall alone. My little girl, I wish you a happy life, a life without worries. The sound of the flute was clear and gentle. The starlight in the phoenix eyes was fine, indescribable affection, endless wishes. Chapter 1522. The melodious sound of the flute seemed to be incompatible with the noise of the firecrackers, but it also seemed to resonate with them. The sound of the flute penetrated the sea of people and floated into the carriage. Sitting in the carriage, Chu Qingyan was suddenly stunned. Then her eyes widened in disbelief and quickly turned red. She had heard this song before. Dong Ting, is that you? It must be you. I knew it, you're still alive. You're still alive. That's great. You're still here. If today wasn't different from the past, she would have flown out following the sound of the flute. She raised her hand to cover her mouth, her eyes filled with warmth. At that time, she had searched the entire mountain, but she couldn't find any trace of him. Those parting words, word by word, were like the last words of someone who was about to die, leaving an indelible mark in her memory. Now, she finally had something to worry about. Since he was able to appear here, it proved that he was safe and sound. It turned out that the heavens weren't so heartless, taking away Xiao Ran and leaving him behind. She could finally feel relieved. Xining and Jasper didn't know why their master suddenly became emotional and tried to calm down, but they could feel the joy and surprise emitted from their master. The two looked at each other. Xining revealed a blank expression, but Jasper's internal strength was strong, so she caught the sound of the flute coming with the wind. She thought, could it be related to this sound? Xiao Su, who was sitting on the white horse, slightly raised his eyebrows. At this time, Turin quickly walked to his side and whispered a few words. His cold eyes revealed a clear smile. So it was the return of an old friend. The corners of his mouth rose, containing a smile. Like this, the little fellow could be completely relieved. The long line went around the entire capital and finally headed towards the imperial palace. Hey, they're too far away, you can't see them. A pretty voice sounded in his ear. Higashio Motetsu put down the flute. He didn't turn around, but slowly put away the flute. Why are you here? The pretty voice sounded behind him again, you're running out before you've fully recovered. If you were to die halfway through, how could you live up to my reputation as the medical devil's direct disciple? Retracting his gaze from the end of the road, Higashio Motetsu still said casually, I know my own body. You don't have to worry about it. The owner of the voice crossed his arms and sneered, I saved you with great difficulty, and this is how you treat your savior. To think that you are the master of the Moon Palace. Higashio Motetsu chuckled coldly. Then what do you want? Money? Just say the word. The Moon Palace will definitely satisfy you. You. That pretty girl was so angry that she couldn't say anything. In the end, she took a few deep breaths and spat out the turbid air in her heart. This person just wouldn't stop until she was shocked to death. He always wanted to anger her half to death. Go back. This place isn't suitable for you. Higashio Motetsu turned around, intending to walk past her. However, at this moment, the pretty girl grabbed his hand. Her large eyes blinked as she moved closer to him. She said in an extremely innocent voice, "Forget about money. How about you repay me with your body? This lady has calculated with her fingers that you lack a wife in your life. Why don't you submit to this lady?" Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows. He raised a finger and tapped her forehead. Then, he pushed her away with a bit of force. He said in a teasing tone, "You're still young, but your tone is quite big. You should go home and read a few more medical books. The outside world is very dangerous. It's not suitable for a little girl like you." After saying this, he directly walked past her, not even giving her a second glance. The girl was rejected, but she wasn't sad at all. In any case, this wasn't the first time. However, she was still so angry that she stomped her feet. "How many times have I told you? I'm not young anymore. I'm as old as that Miss Chu you care about." However, that person had already stepped lightly on the roof and quickly disappeared into the distance. He didn't hear what she said at all, or perhaps he didn't care at all. The girl pursed her lips, but she wasn't discouraged. The road to pursuing her husband was very long. She couldn't fall halfway. "Miser, wait for me." As she shouted, the girl quickly chased after him. "Who said that there was only one scenery in your world? If you missed it, it wouldn't appear again. That was because the heavens wanted you to miss something that didn't belong to you. However, the things that belonged to you, no matter how early or late, would come. This was what it meant to be fated." In the highest palace in the imperial palace, Xiao Su held his wife's hand as they stood on the steps. They were wearing red silk, and each of them held one end of the other. At the head of the table sat the retired emperor, and on his left and right sat Father and Mother Chu. Originally, the Chu couple didn't have the right to sit at the head of the table, but because of the new emperor's golden mouth, the people from the Ministry of Rites could only shut their mouths. "First bow to heaven and earth. Thank the heavens for letting us meet. Second bow to the parents. Thank the parents for raising him. Husband and wife, bow to each other. You and I, husband and wife, are of one heart, weathering the trials and hardships together. The ceremony is complete." The ceremonial official's last sentence didn't mean the end of the wedding. Because next was the coronation of the empress, and then she would receive the worship of the officials and the kneeling of the people. Xiao Su raised his hand and lifted the veil, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. In an instant, the world lost its color. His eyes moved, and thousands of words of praise were stuck in his throat. In the end, only one sentence remained. "Ayan, you're so beautiful today." Chu Qingyan smiled shyly. "Am I only beautiful today?" Xiao Su held her hand and said affectionately, "No, you've always been the most beautiful in my heart." The ceremonial official and the ministers standing nearby felt like they had been fed a mouthful of dog food. Bai Yutong, who were squatting on both sides like flower pets, rolled their eyes. "Get used to it, there's no need to make a fuss." Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao, as younger brothers, were entrusted with an important task. At this time, they were so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. Seeing this pair of dazzling beauties, Xiao Yao said with a bad taste, "Brother, you said that we were working hard here, but Imperial Brother got the beauty back." Xiao Ho smiled. "Second brother, are you envious?" Xiao Yao seemed to have his tail stepped on. "Who said I'm envious? Which eye of yours saw me envious?" He hadn't played enough yet. He didn't want to be tied down at such a young age. But seeing such a cold person like his imperial brother reveal a sincere smile, he actually felt a little moved. What was love like in this world? Would it really change people's appearance? He didn't understand. Xiao Ho looked at his angry brother and shook his head. At this time, he heard him ask, "What about you? Are you envious?" Xiao Ho was slightly startled, and then slowly nodded. "I'm envious. To win the heart of one's heart, to never leave one's side." He really wanted to tell this to little rascal, to let her hear his thoughts. He really wanted to give her a big wedding, to make her the most beautiful bride. To hold her hand, and then grow old with her. But little rascal, when will you come back? Chapter 15:23. Xiao Yao saw his brother's dejected expression and couldn't help but recall how his third brother had suddenly barged into his residence to drink. In the end, he had gotten drunk, crying and laughing at the same time. It seemed that love was a subject that was even more difficult to understand than poetry. Today, you can bask in Imperial Brother's glory. Perhaps one day, the one in your heart will return. Xiao Yao patted his shoulder and comforted him. Then I'll be counting on second brother's auspicious words. Xiao Ho put away his dejected expression. Since he had already made up his mind to wait, there was no need to be sad. He believed that little rascal would return to his side one day. At this time, the eunuch had already begun reading the imperial edict. The Chu clan has a daughter. She is gentle and virtuous, elegant and dignified, and has a soft nature. Thus, she is conferred the title of Empress, the mother of the world. Chu Qingyan stepped forward to receive the edict, while the civil and military officials behind her knelt down to pay their respects. This subject greets the Empress. Long live the Empress! Their voices were deafening, echoing both inside and outside the palace. Rise! Chu Qingyan turned around to face the officials. She raised her hand slightly, her phoenix eyes filled with power. Thank you, Empress. When everyone rose, Su Jian, dressed in a kasaya, appeared on the high platform. Normally, everyone was used to seeing him dressed in green and plain robes. Now that he was dressed so solemnly, everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths and look at him with respect. At this time, Chu Qingyan was only 3 or 4 people away from him. She didn't understand why he would appear here, so she looked in confusion at the large block of ice beside her. Xiao Su, on the other hand, patted the back of her hand, indicating for her to calm down. Chu Qingyan wasn't the only one surprised by Su Jian's appearance. The civil and military officials were also confused. After all, Buddhist disciples did not participate in the secular world. However, this was the wedding of the emperor and empress, so the appearance of a holy monk seemed very reasonable. At this time, Su Jian put his palms together and warmly said to Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan, "This humble monk represents the 100-some monks of Hugua Temple in expressing our sincere blessings to His Majesty and Empress. His Majesty is diligent and loves the people, and Empress is gentle and virtuous. Sichuan has such a ruler is the greatest fortune of 100 years. In the future, Sichuan will prosper and the country prosper and its people live in peace." Before Chu Qingyan could even react, the civil and military officials below were all extremely agitated as they hurriedly knelt down. Long live His Majesty! Long live the Empress! Who was Su Jian? The world's most famous, the world's prophecy. Every word he said was the truth. Who would dare to not believe him? Originally, there had been some people who had been dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan because of the previous rumors, but after seeing her devastatingly beautiful appearance, they developed a prejudice against her. They thought that she was truly an enchantress who would bring disaster to the country, but they didn't dare show it because of the deterrence of the new emperor. Now that they heard Su Jian's words, they completely dispelled their prejudices against Chu Qingyan. So the empress wasn't Sichuan's scourge, but a benefactor. Then they had to worship her and serve her well. They couldn't neglect her. Chu Qingyan looked at Su Jian in disbelief. She felt that he was more dignified than ever before. She didn't know if it was because of this occasion. At this time, Su Jian looked over and met her eyes. He smiled softly, and his emotionless eyes flashed with a faint light. Then he bowed to her and Xiao Su and chanted, Amitabha, before withdrawing with the novice monks. Chu Qingyan looked at his back and felt a wave of gratitude. She could clearly feel the change in the attitude of the civil and military officials toward her. Before, it had been respect due to her status, but now it was respect. It was just a difference of one word, but the treatment was completely different. At this time, the sound of the fireworks pulled her attention back. At this time, she should be returning to the palace with the matron of honor while her big ice cube stayed behind to entertain the officials and guests. But at this time, Xiao Su took her hand and walked forward a few steps. He raised his hand to indicate for everyone to be silent. The people present didn't know what he wanted to do. They all fell silent and raised their heads to look at the beautiful couple on the high stage. Chu Qingyan felt those large hands tightly grip her and couldn't help but turn her head slightly to look at him. His features were exquisite, and his temperament was as cold as the white snow of a high mountain. But she knew how hot his hands were. Xiao Su's thin lips opened slightly, but his words were powerful. Zhen hereby swears that in this life, Zhen will only have one wife, Qingyan of the Chu clan. All the children will be born from her alone. As long as Zhen is on the throne, the harem will never take a concubine. The entire court was shocked. They had never heard of an emperor who only had an empress and no concubines in the harem. But when they thought of Su Jian's prophecy, which was full of affirmation for this new empress, and the fact that the imperial family already had a little prince, they understood. Since the country would be prosperous and the people would be at peace, there would be a prince. His Majesty could do whatever he wanted. They could wholeheartedly support the little prince. If they felt that there were too few people in the imperial family and they needed to have more children, then they could reluctantly become old nannies and urge the emperor and empress to have more children. They could even have princes and princesses. Xiao Su never cared about unimportant people. After saying this, he turned to face his wife. This oath was his promise to the little fellow, and it was to shut the mouths of the officials so that they wouldn't cause trouble for him and the little fellow in the future. Ayan, we will be together forever. I will not let you down. Chu Qingyan seemed to hear thousands of fireworks exploding in her ears. Other than him, there was nothing else in front of her. The husband will be a boulder, and the concubine will be a reed. The reed is as tough as silk, and the boulder is immovable. Her red lips parted slightly as she made the promise of a lifetime. Good. Xiao Su held her hand tightly, interlocking their fingers and never letting go again. Those who were lucky enough to see this scene later said this to those who were not. This is the grandest wedding I've ever seen in my life. It's also the most well-matched couple I've ever seen. The emperor and empress love each other dearly and are in a high position, but they are able to promise a lifetime. They are worthy of being a role model. When the young men and women of the common people heard about the grand wedding, their hearts were all shaken. The young men basically regarded the new emperor, who was both civil and martial, as their idol. They felt that a 9-foot man should be like the new emperor, loving one person for life, cultivating oneself and managing the family, ruling the country and bringing peace to the world. If they didn't sweep a house, how could they sweep the world? The young women all envied the empress for being able to receive such infatuated treatment from the new emperor. They were even more determined that they should be like the empress when marrying a man who could take responsibility and make a lifetime commitment. It was also because of this that this group of young men sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain in the next few years, gradually replacing the positions of the court officials. Their values were influenced by the new emperor and became more and more correct. In addition, they only had one wife at home, and their homes were harmonious. Thus, it was just as Su Jian had said.